Today is March 26, 2018. I'd like to open up the Water and Sewer Commission meeting. I'm going to go ahead. Commissioners' public forum. Anybody here? No. Move on to the minutes.
Mr. Chair, I'm told our bills have been paid, so we have no warrants, and I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of March 19th, which was a week ago today, 2018.
Can you get a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Is anybody not here? Or?
Me.
Okay.
Oh, myself,
Is
aye.
I here too?
No, you weren't here either.
Okay, so we'll just have to wait for
The only
Rob.
one left to sign is Rob.
If you don't show, I think it still just goes with the majority.
Yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
Good enough. Did you guys sign?
Yep.
Okay. All right. No abatements, no nothing else? Wow.
no,
Light fold, I like it.
just met last week, so.
All right.
Don't worry, there's plenty of other stuff to do on the
There's
agenda.
plenty of good stuff. You wanna come up on the hot seat there, John, or?
No, Keith had a doctor's appointment, so
You want me to wait a little bit, or what do you wanna do?
that's entirely up to you guys. I mean, I'm perfectly capable of reading this
Yeah.
report. but
No, come on up.
I don't wanna hold you.
Well, good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Good evening, John.
Pleased to report we don't have a nor'easter scheduled for this week. So I have before me the monthly report for February of 2018. Plant personnel have remained the same. Health and safety, we had no safety accidents or incidents reported for the month of February, and the monthly safety checklist was completed by the staff. In training, the February training for Veolia was on hot work and welding safety, and the second topic discussed was fire prevention, along with the proper way to use a fire extinguisher. Compliance, they did have one NIPD's exceedance for the month of February. It was a pH instantaneous result of 8.5 versus a permit limit of 8.3. Part of our due diligence was to check the pH sensor, and it was reading correctly at the time, so we're not really sure exactly how it was able to get above the 0.3 and go to 0.5. Second sample was immediately taken, and it was found to be within compliance. So it just seems like that was just somewhat of an anomaly. Haven't had any issues since, and you know, we're not really sure what led to that 0.2 SU exceedance. Other than that, the plant performance was good in the month of February, and the report of such is attached as part of this package. The operations and maintenance activities in the month were all the maintenance checklists were completed. The generator was full load exercised with no issues. All the existing developed preventive maintenance work orders were completed on time. Obviously, we had a tremendous amount of snow removal, both at the plant and at the pump stations during the month of February. The staff replaced the drive belts on RBCs number 5 and 9. The monthly critical alarm tests were conducted with no issues. Those include the high influent alarm, the Headworks building high-level sump pit alarm, the high core equipment failure, and the EQ tank high-level float switches. The high flow and alarm on EQ tank levels on 211 were caused by the rain event. We had a reported rainfall total of 1.7 inches. Keith has attached a screenshot of the trend chart in SCADA during that event in your package. The facility maxed the flow meter at 1 MGD for an hour and 40 minutes. And then we also had a peak of 0.689 MGD for 3 hours and 20 minutes. Those lines are represented by their colors. And the EQ tank levels reached 8.84 feet out of a 10-foot deep tank. So all in all, the plant handled all that excess flow quite well. But, obviously, it's a pretty scary event when you're pumping that kind of water. Hopefully with the I&I study, we're gonna be starting on April 2nd. I didn't get a chance to send you an email, but that's the date that Paul's gonna
Paul
start.
emailed me
Oh, he
today.
did, okay, good. Just
John-
be able to try to find.
During this rain event, Keith was set up with some piping to pump from our EQ tanks to the sludge tank as well, correct?
You're right.
So he did pump that over at one time. Again, it was a one-time use only, because once the sludge tank is filled, it's filled until you truck it out. But it did buy him additional 20,000 gallons in those EQ tanks as he was planning ahead for the additional flow with the rain event, so.
Yeah, and that's a pretty typical activity for any stormwater, any available tankage we have, we would try to capture instead of it causing it to go on the ground, so to speak, so. But yeah, thank you, I had forgotten he had done that. He also made provisions to pump secondarily up from the up from that pit up to the top of the hill, although he didn't have to do that.
Yeah, I know he talked about doing that as well, as trying to get provisions in place, so instead of going to the EQ tank, he can go up into the,
Clarifiers.
directly into the clarifiers. There's a spot up there where it disperses it in between the two clarifiers, so he could just bypass everything instead of just overflowing at the EQ tanks, pump it up.
Right, once we get to the top of the hill, then we have gravity on our side, and we can handle all the flow we want through the plant. It's just, our limiting factor is the pumping capacity of the EQ tanks,
Okay.
so,
The discharge pipe, right?
yeah, the size.
The size of the discharge pipe, the pumping capacity is greater than the discharge pipe going all the way up to the clarifiers.
So our
in that-
thought was
in
we
that
could bring in
diversion
a
structure.
trailer pump, or we have a little 3-inch pump there and just run the hoses up. We don't know what the head loss would be, so we're not really sure how much we could gain, but I told Keith to try it during dry weather. Let's just see what we can move up that hill. It's a pretty good head
Yeah.
to pump up, but anything we can do to keep it from hitting the ground, that's what we're gonna try to do.
I believe we have the pump, and Keith borrowed the hoses from Southbridge, and he put together a pricing for us if we wanted to consider purchasing some. I mean, the suction side is the hard 3-inch line, and the outlet side is the roll-up 3-inch vinyl that we can get, so. If there's interest from the board, I'll put that together and forward, and get that ready for you to talk about. It seems like a good way to be ready for these types of events as they happen, and just in case the EQ tanks or something happens where we can't pump up in a typical fashion, we can always use that to secondarily to get us up to the diversion structure
Yeah.
up ahead.
And you'll see in the report as I go through it, one of the things we did post-mortem was pull some of the EQ pumps and look for any blockages, because when you're pushing that kind of flow through your system and the plant, you're likely to push material that, either has been collected on the pipes or, bypass the screening because you're just forcing so much water through there. But good news is there wasn't any debris found in the pump, so that's good. But if you were to get debris, then you've lost even more of your capacity. So having a temporary system, kind of a all hands on deck type thing, might make sense, if it's just a matter of purchasing some hoses.
If I may.
Go ahead.
John, haven't we been working on the EQ pumps and piping as far as improving them?
Yes.
Have we completed that?
I believe everything except the two up top, I forget the number of those.
I believe the two pumps at the EQ tanks have been replaced and are done. The reason we pulled them is because the high core unit was being bypassed when that unit was being rebuilt. And there was concerns of debris just bypassing the high core unit at that time. We wanted to pull the pumps, make sure there was nothing there to affect the impellers or cause wear. So when John gets ahead further to that, we'll see what they found when the pumps are luckily in good shape. I believe we actually have a spare as well. So all that work has been done.
Okay.
Sorry, so you guys were just running the bi-rack?
Yeah.
Yes.
With that high
It can
flow.
only
Yep.
handle so much flow, and that's
Yep.
really our core screen, so
Oh,
it really
yeah.
doesn't trap much at all. It's really just rocks and sticks,
Okay.
basically.
So you were only running on 2 pumps? Is that what you said, or no?
No, all the pumps were
Okay.
operating. What we were just concerned that, when you're pushing that kind of material and flow through that bar, you may get some obstruction. But when we pulled the pumps, we were pleased to see
Okay.
that there weren't any.
Okay, so you pulled them afterwards?
Yeah.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yep. Sorry.
That's okay. We have a total of 4 EQ tanks.
Correct,
There's 2 up above and 2 down below.
correct.
Okay.
No,
Well, there's
No.
two down below, which
Is it-
have 2 pumps each, 3 and 4, and then there's 1 and 2 up top, which are smaller.
Okay, so we, with 2 tiers, and the ones with the, obviously, the toughest lift are the ones at the lower level.
Right,
That
they're
are
much
right next,
bigger pumps.
in fact, they're almost next to the fence down there on the way out.
Correct.
Okay. Just so that
Yeah, visually, yeah.
we got it. Thank you, Jim.
Moving on to pump station activities, all the pump station alarms were tested and completed. Pump station generators were full load tested as well. On February 27th, the MTA Pump Station 6 West, pump number 1 tripped out and could not be reset. The electric company was called in to troubleshoot the issue, found a bad relay. The relay was replaced and the pump was put back online. And the MTA sampling was conducted on February 7th and February 18th. Moving on to the collection system, had grinder call on February 3rd. Pump was pulled, just some smaller debris was found and the breaker was reset. On February 7th, another grinder pump called due to a high level. When we got there, there was no longer a high level alarm. Pump was pulled anyway, inspected, ran through a full cycle and ran under normal conditions and issues. And I guess he's reporting that that was an upgraded system. Had another grinder call on 2/11 for a high level. The pump had burnt out due to a check valve failure outside of the shutoff. There's a picture of the check valve in the package. Basically shows that it's missing. So there is really no check valve. And that would cause, obviously, every time the pump would turn off, it would probably just flow backwards. February 22nd, another grinder pump, high level. The outside breaker was tripped, the pump was pulled, debris was removed, the brake was reset, and the pump tested fine. And then again on 2/26, another grinder call, high level. The pump float was weighted down by a large amount of debris. The debris was removed, it ran through its cycle. And then they performed 10 dig safes for the month of February. And then there's an additional notes, here's where he discussed what we just were talking about with the pumps, EQ pumps. In tanks 2 and 3 were pulled for inspection, there was no debris found. He also took the tanks down to try to gauge how much debris was inside of them, and he did find that, as expected, the amount of grit was up to the bottom of the diffusers, and he actually found some of the diffusers were missing. And that's pretty common with aerated tanks. Everything above the diffuser keeps things suspended, and everything below the diffuser is allowed to settle. So you basically have about 2 feet of grit material on the bottom of those EQ tanks. It's not causing a problem. You could probably sit there forever. You lose some capacity. Probably a good idea to remove it, but it'll come back.
Well, I think didn't we talk about that last time about?
Yeah, we had thought that maybe that grit material, or whether it's magnetite or grit, whether that was causing restrictions on the pumps. But actually what we found was the pump, the impellers were shot.
Okay.
So basically what's happening is you got a series of pipes at the bottom of the tank with an air diffuser. Everything below them is solid grit, everything above them is your suspended material. I think it's probably prudent to clean them out. Basically what you would do is take the tank offline, go in with a vac and just suck all that grit out and dispose of it. But it's likely to come back over a period of time. I'm not really sure how long it's been since those tanks were cleaned. Keith may know, I personally don't know.
I'm guessing when they did the upgrade,
When they added the diffusers?
which would be what, when was that, 06, 07?
There it is. Keith.
So you're talking all of 10 years?
Yeah, and it's not uncommon, every aeration tank, every basin that has diffusers always has accumulated material below. That stuff can go septic after a while, and it can create some odors and things like that, but we're just discussing the amount of grit at the bottom of the
Oh, yes.
EQ tanks.
Yes.
I don't know if you had a record of when it was last cleaned.
No, I haven't located any information for that.
So it's not an easy job to do, it's not critical in any stretch, but it's probably not a bad idea to remove it, but it'll come back. Your only other option would be to lower the diffusers down, so you get less space for the grit to accumulate, but I think once we get the headworks analysis back and Ty and Bond gives us some recommendations that may include doing something to those aerated EQ tanks to gain a little more capacity, I'm not sure.
I think as they were pumping them down, we saw how the diffusers were. They're not functioning properly. It seems like wherever there was a weld or a seam for a bracket, the air was just escaping out there in big chunks instead of actually being forced through the entire diffuser. So we're gonna have to figure out a way to do something with those to get them functioning properly, as that is a big key to help us treat the BOD at that point and add oxygen there. So,
Can you go to some kind of, I forget the trade name of it, but it sits on the bottom.
The fine bubble,
Like a
What is
sand,
it?
the
sanitary.
fine bubble, sanitaire, they got.
Yeah, there's
rubber
different ones.
membrane.
Yeah, there's one that, it gets everything, keeps it all in solution, keep them settling out.
Yeah, I think if you
The
were
pulse
gonna,
air is
yeah, if
one
you
of
were
them.
gonna design these tanks from scratch to make them effective aeration basins, basically, you would go with a different type of air system. The smaller the bubble you make, the more surface area is available, and that just increases your efficiency of oxygen transfer for the bacteria, basically. It's remarkable how much removal we're getting out of these tanks, given, you know, that's not what they're really designed to do. So I think there's an opportunity to increase capacity simply by investing a little bit of capital into those tanks, especially now that we know we've got some failures going on in there. They're not even as good as they could be if they were as they are, but yet we're still seeing pretty good removal, bacteria.
Could you go back to kind of the mixing ones that go on top?
Mechanic, I mean, you could, the only problem is you're limited, those tanks are covered, so you're limited to how much oxygen transfer you're gonna get from the atmosphere into them.
Yeah.
I've seen, there's, a lot of different technologies for introducing air. Some have a mixer with an air purge into it. Some are mechanical aerators, they lift the water into the atmosphere. Some are diffusers. I think if you're going to retrofit them to gain more capacity, which I think will be a recommendation, I'd be surprised if it doesn't come back that way. Then I think really evaluating what makes sense is probably the next step.
Question, John, on the diffusers, they run 24/7.
They do.
In the diffusers, is it just movement, or is it also call for air to be brought in?
It's both. If you can imagine a fish tank with a stone that moves.
Exactly.
That's exactly what they do. In this particular case, they're not only the mixing energy, but they're the oxygen introduction into the bacteria. So you're doing two things. You're introducing air, and you're using the air to help mix the tank as well, keep things suspended.
Okay, all right, so like you said, there's that layer underneath the diffusers, and also as the diffusers help to keep things suspended.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
And so,
what's happened is where the air is no longer, when you're below that air pocket, you're gonna get settling, and that's what you've got. There can't be any more settling than there, because it's packed. It's basically the new floor of the tank, basically. But like I said, you could take all that material out, and then within a period of time, it's gonna come back. It just will. I just don't know how long, depending on how good of a grit removal system you have, and how much of that is magnetite. I'm not sure. We could probably do an analysis.
Can take a sample out.
Could tell you whether it's magnetite or grit or both. That magnetite does tend to migrate.
and these tanks are 10,000, 20,000 gallons?
40,000 gallons,
So we have 40,000 gallon tanks?
3.
We have 3.
EQ tank 1, EQ 2, and EQ 3. They're 40,000 gallons each.
2 and 3 are the lower ones, and 1 is the upper one, right?
Okay. So if the diffuser was, if the tank was cleaned out and you put the diffuser dead bottom, then
You gain more capacity.
you gain more capacity, you get better, or at least you get more, I would think you get more activity, or at least more exposure of the air going through the
Yeah,
entire.
that's what I mean by efficiency. You would gain more room in your tank,
Right,
basically.
right. Because really, I mean, going back to what's an excellent example for the layman out there, and for people like myself, is it's nothing more than the air stone that you would put in the fish tank.
Exactly the same.
So do they
Exactly what
design
we're
any
doing.
that would be long and thin and that would sit on the bottom?
Yeah, I mean, typically they go, they're PVC pipes with a PVC dome, and then on top of that, you either have a ceramic stone, like a fish tank would have,
Yeah.
or the newer technology is a membrane that can flex a little bit, so you get better life out of them. They don't fall as easy as the stones do, because they actually move, they kind of clean themselves a little bit.
They actually move?
Yeah, they flex.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, if you can imagine like an air stone is just a stone.
right.
So that tends, particularly if you use air, things collect on it, it's hard to clean it. Where a membrane is a piece of rubber, and as the air pressure changes, they flex. And that helps keep them clean.
So do we, Keith, do we have a large compressor down there that puts air into these?
We actually have two Roots blowers, one for each aeration tank.
So are these the blowers that are outside next
Yes,
to
on
where
top.
we have all the,
They're on top of the aeration, the EQ tanks.
I'm thinking about where we have all those wood chips.
No, this is, if you
That's
look
older.
down to the EQ tanks, one and two,
Yeah,
those rectangle boxes that are on top,
okay.
the
kind of
blowers are
like a
internal.
beehive or something, okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
But you don't have any control over the air either. It's just on, it's either high or low, right?
yes.
So sometimes you might be adding too much air, not enough. You don't have any control of it. It's really,
They're not on VFDs where you could.
the newer blower technologies actually have turn downs. where you-
Okay, so, and again, like Keith just said, we could, if everything else is good, we could always change the motors. If in fact, we were looking to dial them in to have a certain ratio.
Yeah, typically, if it comes out that makes sense to invest to get more capacity, it would come as a package. The diffusers need a certain pressure and a certain volume, so you'd have to size the blower to make sure that it meets that. But, it's just efficiency. The better the system, the more treatment you're gonna gain out of it versus how much it's gonna cost. So, yeah, so that's the report. Like I said, we did have that one slight pH excursion, a maximum of 8.5. Not really sure what happened with that. We'll look into it. Anything else?
No, that was all we had for the report.
John and Keith?
Yes,
On the report of plant performance, flow GPD, 306,000.
Yes.
Is that mainly the rain event that caused that to be as high as it is?
yes, we had two rain events.
Because that's considerably above our average,
That's correct.
but by about 25 or 30%.
About 100,000 gallons.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so that's
It's,
good enough.
It'll be even more for the month of March. We're not done yet. March was quite a rain event compared to February, so we'll cover that in next month's report.
Yeah, February had a lot of snow, but then obviously it melts, and then when it rains on top of it, it makes it worse. But yeah, March has been good, but it's been regional. Everyone's been aware. I mean, we've had nor'easter after nor'easter.
Snow is good, right?
When it melts all at once.
And as far as our metals go, everything looks like we're certainly below the
Yes.
limitations.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, one of
On
the
a
things we're
whole.
doing, Chairman, is we're actually sampling ahead of the COMAG system for metals now, because we're gonna have a report probably in a period of time to show you how much metals removal we're getting out, because I know we're operating the system during the non-permit season for metals removal, but I don't have any real good data on how much metals removal we're getting, if any. So we'll be able to get some of that information to you as we continue with our sampling protocol.
Our only other
Yes,
main
we did.
concern is ammonia level will change come springtime, correct?
April 1st, it goes to 3.6.
Yeah, limit gets tighter.
So right now, it's at 8.0.
That's correct,
And it's going to what, 3.6?
yes.
And then it phases.
Then it goes down to 1.42 for the remainder of the season till October 31st.
But for February, we recorded 0.80.
That's correct.
Yeah, well, you may recall, we fired up that last RBC unit in preparation for the upcoming season. Because, you know, in October, we had that ammonia excursion because we, you know, they kind of caught us by surprise. And RBCs just take a while to get the film built up on them. So Keith spent the last couple months getting that thing ready to go and fired up
Yes.
in preparation for the warmer season and the lower limit. But yeah, we're doing well with ammonia.
Do you think it's gonna be a problem?
I mean, it was a problem in October, but the numbers have been good throughout the winter, so we're optimistic that it should be. And as the water temperature increases, our removal efficiency should go up.
Okay. And this is still with our old permit, right? We haven't received
Yes.
that new permit yet?
No.
Okay.
What we are seeing, and I don't know if it's on the agenda, Peter, is the sludge production.
It is.
Uh,
Your letter's
we're
attached.
Definitely seeing the effects of that additional load. We're generating a lot of sludge, which is the byproduct of removal, basically.
Now, this is just a cause and effect. Because you're running the plant in a different way, are you treating it better, that's creating more sludge, or, you know what I mean, is it a singular event, like you kinda stated, or?
No,
do you
we're
think it's
not
a
running it
combination?
differently. The only thing we've done is add an additional RBC into your last RBC,
Okay.
simply because that's how we remove the ammonia. And we had a high level of ammonia in the effluent in October, which means we didn't have enough capacity. So we had another piece of equipment to add, so we brought that online. And you can see the ammonia's came down, so it's definitely performing. It's helping reduce the amount of ammonia. But we're not operating the plant
No.
any differently than it's historically been. It's not much we can change, to be honest. The only thing we can control
Okay.
is the amount of solids we try to hold in the plant.
Yep.
But sludge generation removal is all based on your load, what's coming in. For every pound of BOD you bring in, you generate X amount of pounds of solids. That's just what the bugs do.
Couple things. The RBCs, I recall that there was either one or two in the building that needed repair.
Correct, there's two,
There's
Two.
two RBCs, 1 and 2.
Okay,
which
so,
out of service.
all right, so they get the sign on them, out of service.
Yeah.
All right.
That's correct.
And the one that you just started up is in the building or
Yes.
outside the building?
No, in the building,
In the building,
yes. So
Okay.
2 through 10 are online.
okay.
Excuse me, 3 through 10. 1 and 2 are offline, and those are the ones that
Right.
are out of service.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically, everything that's available to us is online.
Okay, good enough. Now, getting back to the sludge, is there any way of wringing out the sludge?
Yeah, in fact, if you look at the data, I don't know if when we get to it, you'll see that Keith's done a really tremendous job in increasing the concentration of it, so
Yeah.
we're not sending as much water out. But your expenses are hauling it and then disposing it. Disposing it is based on the dryness. So whether it's in 2 tanks or 1 tank, you're still getting the dry solids. That's what they build you against. But the advantage of thickening it is you take fewer trucks. You're taking less water. And I don't know when you want to go through that. I don't know.
It's attached right after this, so. Alex, your
Look at the data.
That's right there, if you want it.
Was that the one from, it's in this package, right? I was looking at it today.
Oh, you have a packet? Okay.
Yeah, if you look right now, we're averaging about seven loads a month, and 11 dry tons, which historically, we were doing about 4.5 loads a month, about 7 dry tons. So it's a pretty steep increase. You can just see the data, the number of dry tons per month.
Why does April and May seem to be the heaviest months? Is there a reason for that?
It could be flow related, those typically tend to be wet months.
Wet months, okay.
Scouring the pipe, getting it all into the system.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, but typically the more flow, the more solid you bring in, and those are typically the wet months. know, March's data isn't here, but I know that the number of loads that went out in March were 8. You know, it's getting to the point where we should also start thinking about whether it makes sense to invest in some sort of thickening device. Right now, everything we do is through decanting. Basically, we fill a tank, we let it settle, and we kind of take the water off to a, you know, that's all done manually. Again, it doesn't change the solids, but it changes the number of trucks to move the same amount of solid out of the plant, because you want to keep the water, you don't want to send the water away. But the data, you know, it definitely looks like, it doesn't, ever since about May or June of last year, we've seen a stark increase in sludge production. I think we know, you know, what came online
Yeah.
in May and June of last year. And, you know, we had talked about it before, there's really no free lunch, right? If you're taking more stuff in, you're gonna produce more solids, you just are. And right now, we're disposing of roughly about 7 loads, about 11 dry tons a month, which is a pretty good jump from historically where it's been. And I went back as far as 2014. You can see 2014 through 2016 into the early part of 2017 was pretty straight, 4.5 per month. And then all of a sudden, now we're up around 11.
And you guys are taking it to Cranston now too, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why is because you got a better rate,
Yeah,
enough to make up for the extra mileage?
yes. It's just about the same, really. Upper Blackstone was giving us a demurrage as well, weren't they?
Yeah.
But Noonan gives you guys a real good deal on the trucking
Yeah.
too, doesn't
We
he?
do a lot of business with them, so
Yeah.
that's a big deal. But it's just the sheer volume of it, that's the problem. We're just generating a lot more of it than historical. I think once the treatment process goes online, that may change. Once they're removing some of their own material, you know, in their little tanks, but as it stands right now, it's just all coming to us. We're generating a lot more solids. And we have to get rid of it, because there's no place to keep it. And,
Yeah. And I think they're getting billed additionally for that too, right?
Correct. I mean, January 1st started their surcharges of $1 per pound for BOD. Prior to that, they agreed to pay per truckload from when they came online until December 31st, based on anything over 4 truckloads per month. And that invoice is attached, and that's been paid
So what's this $715?
per truckload.
Yeah, we had
Wasn't-
met
wasn't
with them in the
estimate.
summer, and during our discussion, they said, well, what is a typical truckload? And between trucking and disposal, I mean, it changes a little bit based on
That
solids.
seems cheap.
It's somewhere between $700 and $800, but that's about what it is.
That's the price, that's
Really?
what John told me.
Yeah, it's about 400 a dry ton, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah.
And about 200 and something bucks to haul it.
Okay.
360.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought it was
360 for hauling.
360. So. But on average, it's 7 to 8 in that range.
So now, they're gonna be surcharged for BOD TSS. Their ammonia's below the 40 milligrams per liter, so their tentative surcharges would be about $14,000 a quarter. So if we had to pay Veolia for, say, 3 truckloads a month, that would be 9 truckloads.
$2,000 a month.
Yeah.
So it will be less than the surcharge if it stays consistent at 7 or 8 loads per month. And again, Treehouse is looking at having someone come in and help them create a pre-treatment process so we don't keep getting these high levels. And they're looking at doing that sooner than later. So once I have more information on that, I think they're looking forward to getting that process going. So their intent is not to continue to keep sending this to us.
Yeah, it's always more cost-effective to treat at the source than it is to send it down the pipe and treat it at the plant.
Sounds good.
Is the board willing to accept John's recommendation for him to pass through the charge of any loads over 5 per month?
Yeah, what I did is I recognized that, you know, four and, so I said, you know, let me own up to 5. And then anything above 5, I'm just looking for a direct pass-through, not looking to mark anything up, just to help cover the expense that we've been experiencing. Basically, we're subsidizing them for hauling away.
Yeah, because that's part of your contract, right?
We pay for sludge.
John, based on your research, the 5 a month, correct?
Yes.
So that average is, your research says, that's what it has been over the past 2-3 years.
As far back as I have data,
Okay.
it's
All
been
right, that
between
seems
4
fair.
and 5. 1 month it's 4, 1 month it's 5, 1 month it's 4, 1 month it's 5. You know, it's just, but on average, it's 4.5, so I said just call it 5. you know.
The 3-year average is 56 loads for the year, and last year we're at 76.
Yeah.
So that's the difference of 20 loads is right.
Yeah.
It's right on the money.
No, I think it's fair.
What do you need a motion for? We need a motion or?
Some type of motion to verify that you're willing to pay Veolia on the pass-through cost of any sludge loads of more than 5 per month. So when he invoices us next month and it shows up, it's just so it's tracked that you guys agreed to do that.
And the reason why we're doing this is so that we don't have to wait 12 months, or
Right.
or Veolia doesn't have to wait 12 months until we do our audit and say, fine, this is what we owe you. Okay, I guess so moved. Wait a second, on what Peter said.
I'll second it.
I just got a question, if we pay them right away, after if we get 5, and the next month's only 3, you know, we averaged 4, but,
Oh.
you know, depending on what day of the month it gets pumped and that sort of thing, you know, you could get, like, every now and then we have a 5-week month.
Yeah, that's why I said it at
So
5,
that's-
because I don't think we'll ever be at 3. We've never been at 3.
So if you're gonna take an average, though, it shouldn't be just 1 month, it should be over 3 or 4. Now, I understand going a whole year is a long time, but that's certainly a more accurate way to get an average.
But the way I thought it was that, you know, anything above 5,
Yeah,
you know, so you're not gonna do anything if it's 5 or under.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just anything above 5 would be, you know, we could reconcile it.
So
Whether-
6
whether-
is the bottom line to pay an extra one.
Right.
Yeah, but that's okay, I guess.
Unless you wanted to do it quarterly. I just don't want it to go the full year and have to,
No, it'd be
If
a
you-
pain to do it at the end of the year.
so you can do it quarterly. And that way there you don't, we just don't lose track of it and it gets forgotten, that's all. That way you add the 3 together and whatever's over 15, we have to reimburse them for.
how's that sit with you, John?
No, that's fine. That's fine. I appreciate the wanting to work, you know, again, this isn't a way for anyone to make money, or it's just a,
No, we're gonna deal with it. In favor?
Yep, all in favor?
Aye.
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 And I think you guys are quite a bit cheaper. I wanna say we were paying like 1,200 a month going to Blackstone, or a
A
load.
load? Don't tell them that.
no, I can't remember, I mean, when we evaluated, it was slightly cheaper, it wasn't, I mean, the numbers are published, so I can, but Blackstone, we had a bigger issue with them, I think it was, we couldn't schedule it correctly, right? They were always giving us a hard time.
Yeah. I don't know, I could've swore, I remember it was,
Well, we're getting the Veolia price.
well, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
That's definitely-
As far as the trucking, we're definitely getting the benefit of their contract with Noonan for trucking.
Correct, cause I wanna say we were paying almost the same to bring it to Worcester.
You probably were. I mean, that's some of the advantages of working with
Yeah.
us. You know, we basically manage it, so both the trucking and the disposal.
So what I was getting at is basically it's a good deal for us as the board. You know what I mean? If we
Yeah.
gotta pay a couple extra, we're benefiting from you guys.
Yeah, if it was to go somewhere else, it would be much more.
Correct.
You're right, Dave. Anything else you have for me?
I think so.
Like I said, I'm glad, I do have a copy of the limit account. It came across my phone today. Unfortunately, I didn't get the tracking. I don't know if you have that or not.
It was in the
I
MOR.
gave them.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
Yeah, it's in the
It just
MOR.
came late, so I wasn't sure if you had it. But
For
we're on track.
February's is in here.
Yes.
It looks good. We're only at 1,100.
Yeah, so-
Good month. Keith, the only other thing I wanted to mention is you brought up possibly purchasing hosing to be able to do the pumping up to the diversion
Yes.
structure.
A lot of the 3-inch hose that's at the facility is aged and worn out, and we'd like to purchase enough 3-inch hard hose to go all the way to the diversion structure up in the back of the building where the EQ tanks pump to. Reason being, the rain event that we had in March, we actually used the gas-powered pump, and we pumped it to the holding tanks because we didn't have enough hose to reach the diversion structure. So basically what the situation is, the problem's not the top end of the treatment plant, it's getting it from the EQ tanks up to the back. So what happened, we had such high flows, the EQ tanks actually got to 9.4 feet. And the only thing that benefited us was having that gas-powered pump with the section of hoses we had that were good. The issue is the sludge holding tanks only hold 40,000 gallons. Takes about 40 to 45 minutes to fill them, so once they're full, that's it. So if we had enough hose, 300 feet, we can reach the diversion structure in the back and just keep pumping it in. It'll keep it going through the plant versus filling tanks and then
Yeah, I mean,
having to be concerned with the
What do you
level in the EQ tanks.
talking $1,000, $1,500 worth of.
It's
pipe.
about 1,500
Yeah.
roughly.
It might make sense, and I mentioned this when you weren't here, was that what we could probably do is rent some hoses and test it, because I'd hate to make the investment and find out that we couldn't overcome the head. You know, I mean, we're,
If you need
pumping
the-
it horizontally from EQ to holding tank is a different animal than pumping it from the EQ tanks up to the top of that hill. I just don't know what kind of flow rate we're gonna get, so we could probably rent some hose or, track some down, at least try it. Because if not, then the 3-inch pump may not be sufficient, we might have to get a bigger, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So, I'm just concerned that the 3-inch pump with that kind of heads, if it does pump, you're not gonna have the same capacity, you just won't. But I don't know how much, I could probably do an engineering calculation.
And reducing the pipe size does not help, because you're
No.
then
No, it
not
actually
moving the
makes it
volume you need
worse.
to move.
And get higher friction loss.
Just
So
pump
I don't
it.
know if it makes sense, Peter, to at least try it first
Sure.
before we make the investment, but I'd hate to spend your money and then not have any advantage of it. So.
Does pump have a check on it?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes it does.
Sure, there's a few septic guys around that could donate some. hose
Yeah,
for
we've
you.
got plans.
I know I can get some hard.
Flexible.
I also have good rental agreements with companies, as part of our.
Oh, you wanted both.
The stiff is when you're on a suction.
Suction side. Keith, you priced out both, correct?
Yes, I
The
did.
hard hose for the suction size and then the
Lay
vinyl
flat
roll-up
for the
hose for the
discharge.
discharge.
Yeah,
So-
it's like the fire hose for the.
Yeah.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
It's nice for storage too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it was like 1,500 feet, was it? It was quite a,
It's 300 feet we need, I think it was roughly $1,500 for the hard hose and the lay
Yeah.
flat hose. But John brought up a very good point, and get some hose to test it first to confirm.
Because what do you think of the 3-inch pump?
Well, that's what you
that's
have.
what, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's 2 3-inch pumps at the facility.
What, like the handheld ones or like the gas powered?
It's gas powered, it's
Yeah.
on the little
Yeah,
dollar
like the
trailer.
whacker, the 10 horsepower
Correct.
motor. Yeah.
Exactly right.
There's 2 of those at the facility, so.
Yeah. Okay.
We have resources in the event that we had a real catastrophe. I've got 6-inch, 8-inch pumps all over my region that I could bring in, but that's not something we could always count on
Yeah.
having, so I think it would make sense to have something stationed at the plant. I just don't know if 3 inches is gonna be enough. That's all.
Yeah.
But we can test it.
Absolutely.
No, and the truth is if you had to call in trucks or something else, you could have bought the pump by the time
Yeah,
it was all
exactly.
said and done, so you might as well just buy the pump.
But like I said, like he said, once it gets to the top of the hill, gravity works for us, and we can pump a lot, you can send a lot through that plant.
Now, can any of those pumps ever use as a backup for like a pump station and stuff like that? Could you ever, sometimes you see little trailer ones and.
Yeah, well, I mean, we do it all the time when we're doing sewer work. We'll bypass pump around a station or even around a manhole.
I'm just thinking, you know what I mean, I'm just thinking if you're gonna have something, you
Yeah,
you
most
know.
of our systems, they're bigger. We have at least a 6-inch trailable pump
Yeah.
that's available to us to tow around, to either supplement pump station or sewer work, things like that. But I have those resources.
Okay.
So if we needed them here, I could bring them in. if they're not being used somewhere else, and that's just part of
Okay.
what Veolia brings. If we needed a pump, I could get one in an hour,
Okay.
so.
Let's hope we don't have to hold you to it.
No, hey, believe it happens. This nor'easter's been challenging in some places, really challenging.
Yes, it has.
Plan held up well, though, so, it's good. No violations,
No.
Good.
no
And
SSO.
I'm sure you've got operations out there to where people just had to let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was more of a coastal storm, like
Oh, yeah.
areas like Taunton, New Bedford, they got hammered. Yeah,
Yep.
and April 2nd, we'll start doing.
Turn the
some,
corner.
Yeah, and I stuff, yep.
Okay, nice job, gentlemen, thank you.
All right,
All right,
thanks,
thank you,
Have a
guys.
Good night.
Yep. Beta, you guys wanna come on up?
Thanks for waiting.
I said good morning. Good evening.
How are you guys?
How are you? I'm going to be speaking for Kendra tonight. She doesn't really have a voice. But she's here to whisper in mine if I run into trouble.
Give me the old elbow?
Yeah, exactly. So, good evening. We're here this evening to give you an update on where we are with the facilities plan. So essentially, we're just about done. We just handed Peter the draft for him to take a look at. We're still assembling the appendices that have all the different components that'll be required for conservation, et cetera, water auditing. The model is set. We've come up with a capital improvement plan. You might choke a little bit when you see it, but it's kind of a first step just to see what we think you potentially would want in a perfect world. And obviously that can be back down as time goes on and you have a rate study done, because the rate study will let you know if that's even affordable. So right now, we're not sure. But at least we'd give you what we think you need, and then we can always pull back from that. So that's where we are. Any questions? Obviously, this will be a draft, and you'll have all the time that you want and need to take a look at it.
Okay.
And we can come back and address your comments another time. This is just really basically a step toward, another step toward you becoming a consecutive user for water supply.
So, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Back in October of 2017, you approved Beta to do items 1 through 13 that's attached to your agenda.
Yep.
I believe what's in front of you is a culmination of them doing items 1 through 13 that they said that they would have done for March. So the second page of my memo for Beta has the letter that was given to you. And I believe there's still funding from our initial contract with Beta to do items 1 through 4 in the bottom that weren't approved previously. So moving forward, a lot of the stuff to determine whether or not we want to become a consecutive water supply, or if we chose to apply to DEP to become a consecutive water supply, is done. Like all the cross connection, the current flushing program, all the small programs that we would have to have in place for DEP to allow us to become a consecutive water supply is now done as part of this work. The capital improvement plan is important because that's what we have to carry forward when we do our rate study, to add that in to determine what our rate should be. And I guess in our case, we're gonna, in previous discussions with the commission, it seems that if we do become consecutive, the commission would like to prioritize and keep the current rates that Southbridge charge, so that our water customers wouldn't notice any different. The rates are still the same rates, and we would just be we would be doing the billing instead of Southbridge. Their cost would not change. So the only other item that we need, or factor in the equation that we need, is our cost of water from Southbridge. Then we can have that water rate study done to determine if what we're paying for water from Southbridge, our water use, and what we're gonna charge based on Southbridge's rates will make us enough money to be an affordable water operator with being able to fund that capital improvement plan.
Correct.
So a lot of the initial steps have been done to this point. Right now, it's just a few more steps that we need to take to really get a little bit more information so that you can decide whether or not we should apply to DEP to become that public water supply. Consecutive water supply, sorry. So, and again, as Bob said, this is a draft. I haven't really seen it yet, so we can take time to review it and mark up any comments and meet with them again.
And
You
we
have that
can,
in PDF form and stuff, or?
and we can get
Sure
you
they
more
can send it
copies,
to us.
PDF, whatever you need.
PDF is
It might be easier, you know what I mean, then we can just ship it out and we can all review
Absolutely.
it. You know,
No problem.
I'm just
enough
curious,
trees killed all over.
I'm just curious where the undersized mains are located.
Sorry, Kendra.
It's all right. It's the 4-inch main on Route 20, once you pass Mayberry Lane. So 4-inch mains can't provide fire protection.
Right, right, and
Right.
we went through that with the highway people when they wanted to bring water there.
Right.
And we also gave that strong consideration and said, you know, it's really a no-no to do that. But then when we looked at all of the properties that possibly could be developed, there's only one that could be a large development. And I believe it was, the consensus is whoever's gonna go in there, would be.
Would upsize the main.
Would upsize the
Right.
main, exactly. So that's what we had thought
Yeah,
there.
that's fine. And again, with the capital improvement plan, it's, just because the pieces are there, doesn't mean the commission would actually be paying for them. I mean, you could be spreading it out.
Okay,
It's-
okay.
It
but-
just gives you an idea of what it could be.
And obviously, it's been identified as a shortcut coming,
Right.
which is, that's the good part of
Right,
having something
exactly.
like this done, because you can pick it right out.
Right. It helps you with negotiating too, when you move forward.
Correct. Okay, okay. Good enough. On the, again, just to look at the estimated cost to start up the tank, is that just the rinse and chlorinating?
Chlorinating,
and then
testing,
throwing
all
it on?
that. Right,
Okay, 'cause
exactly.
we've started and stopped that tank on 3 different occasions.
Sure.
We're getting pretty good at it, but,
Right, right.
okay,
There's contingency built into all of those
to
prices.
all of those numbers as well, okay. And I believe somewhere, I don't know if you found it, or, there was a total inventory of the water system. Did you come across that? By footage and,
We weren't given any of that information. We were given GIS information
Right.
that had that, but we weren't handed like a spreadsheet or something, or ever given something that
I
had
know
that.
when we were going through the negotiations with Southbridge that part of that, there was a value that was put on to
The system itself.
the system itself, correct, based on the footage, the tanks, all of that, and,
We haven't seen that, but I think we've got
It's around
enough.
somewhere.
I think we've got enough that it's in our model, so it could be developed.
yeah. And do you have a daily usage in mind of what would click off going going off the Hammond Hill tank and going on to our Route 20 785,000 gallon tank?
Short answer is right, yes.
Yes, I don't have the number directly off my
Okay.
head right
But
now.
yes, the short answer is we have that number. We don't have it right in front of us, but we
Okay,
have that number.
okay. And there's been some discussion about changing the entrance of the fill tank, rather than, or fill line, excuse me, rather than making that a two-way street. The thought is, fine, the hole in the bottom of the tank is the exit, and we're gonna add
Sure, essentially be passive mixing.
your passive mixing.
And that's not uncommon. I mean, that would be up to you folks, but yeah, essentially what you're doing is, in a normal standpipe, there's a single pipe that comes in. And if the tank is full and the pumps are off and there's a demand, the water drains out. When the pumps are on and it exceeds the demand, it fills up. So it's all coming through the same pipe.
Correct.
The issue that you can have is, depending on the temperature of the tank, you can have old water sitting up at the top of the tank, the new water coming in and going out, and it can create a water quality issue. With the system you're describing, you would essentially run, you'd still have one line coming into the tank, but as it gets to the tank, it would split. And then you'd have the line at the bottom of the tank that exists. You would then tee off of that, come up along the tank, and you would have some sort of a flap valve, duck bills,
Sure.
or what have you, so that, and then you would have a check valve at the bottom, so that when the tank is filling, check valve would close, it would force the water up the tank
Yeah.
and dump it in at the top so that it filters down. So essentially you have some sort of a static mixing. So that's actually very common. A lot of communities, what they do is, most of the old tanks don't have it. So as communities are inspecting their tanks, painting their tanks, once a tank is drained, that's the time to do it. And if you have the money, a lot of communities will do that. So you have static, and what I mean by static is there's no mechanical mixing, there's no electricity, there's nothing along those lines. Some communities will also opt to go with mechanical mixers. So have a floating solar bee or something along that line that sits at the top that actually can be either electrically powered or solar powered, where it does the same thing, it kind of mixes the whole tank. So you really have options if you get into that.
And you are probably aware of this, we have a PAX mixer in that tank.
Exactly.
Right now, yeah. Okay.
And that's just good practice moving forward to eventually have mixing in all your tanks. Just, it helps with your water age. Keeps your water quality fresh, more fresh. Plus, it actually knocks down the ice formation, so you don't get the ice at the top. So when you get a lot of ice at the top, it rides up and down the tank and can really scour the sides of the tank, take the paint off, and can actually damage the tank.
The ice one.
Yes,
But seasonally, it helps with stratification too.
exactly.
And,
One of the things we were talking about, or I was thinking about, was with ExxonMobil running that water line up H. Putnam Road extension, to possibly do a dedicated line from there in, and then have a separate line out.
True.
So it would be water in one way and then water out another way, so that it's,
Sure, so as long as
that
you-
way there would be a lot less holding time in that tank, and hopefully we could start using that sooner than later to help with the water age issue, because it would kind of short circuit going all the way to Hammond Hill Road and then coming through Northside Road to get to the rest of the system. But
So you're basically using like the rest stop as the end of the line?
from our tank, yes. So our tank would kind of be the central point and then fill to both ways, to east and west from our tank out. So. And hopefully that would allow us to not have to wait till we have 300,000 gallons a day to have to start using our tank. Hopefully we could do it sooner.
Because that's the problem with our tank, is the turnover,
It's
right?
too large, yes.
That's way too big.
so any idea what the magic number is? 220, 280, 310?
Isn't the general rule of thumb
Just-
2 days of storage
I was
in the
gonna say,
tank?
it's between two to 5 days is kind of the rule of thumb. So what we would do is we go in and we calculate what the water age is depending on your demand. So as your demand rises, there'll be a point where it's in.
Yeah,
there's-
7.3.
7.3?
Yeah, 191, 590?
So that's the magic
That's
number?
what, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what that's what the estimated future demand is with both developments going in for Berry Corner Road and the school loop, and your average daily demand currently of 100,000 gallons per day is the 191, 590. I believe it's less than that for activation of the Hammond, of the Route 20 tank, but I gotta check my numbers back sure, I don't see it in here, so I can't tell you for sure right now.
We have it though.
You got it covered, good, good. The, I believe Southbridge last year put a mixer in one of their tanks. And they're planning on putting a.
Mass Ave.
Mass Ave's gonna now get a mixer?
Mass Ave has a mixer now, and they're planning on putting one in J. Hammond tank.
They're planning, another one in Southbridge? Just the one in Mass Ave and that's it?
I believe Mass Ave is done.
Yeah, yes, definitely it's done because,
That's the one that gave us the improved water quality.
yeah, okay. 'cause,
And now,
yeah,
now they plan on doing the J. Hammond Road tank.
Okay. Which, I don't even know if we need it, but that's what they think.
That's their
Well,
intention.
it never hurts, but.
Yes, that's their intention.
Yeah,
That was part of the bid package, I believe, that they have with the pump station.
all right. I don't know why I'm thinking otherwise, but, which
Now,
is good.
have you ever seen one of those tanks like that where you can reduce the capacity? Fill the bottom with concrete, put a bladder in it, like, talking outside the box thinking, you know?
Honestly, I haven't seen that. I've seen the reverse. I've seen the reverse where you can add rings onto the tank, make it taller, and
Yeah.
increase your hydraulic grade line across the board. I haven't seen it in reverse.
Because we need it on the top, right?
Usually the way you deal with that situation is if you're planning your tank, rather than putting a standpipe in, so a standpipe is a tank that is taller than it is wide,
Yep.
as opposed to a reservoir, which is wider than tall. In a standpipe, there's a percentage of that water that we call inactive, unusable. Obviously, it's usable, but hydraulically, meaning if you draw the tank level down below a certain point, you actually run into issues with the system where you have pressure problems, fire flow problems, et cetera. So below that level is inactive storage. The newer tanks, what you'll see is it's the composite tanks where the tank is sitting up on a pedestal or on legs. So the idea there is you're getting rid of all that water below it. You just have a single pipe coming down. So that's really how you would deal with it. But that's not really answering the question you're asking is, can we take the existing tank we have and fill part of it? I'm not sure how you could do that. I mean, I guess there are some options we could look at, but,
I know it's crazy thinking, but on the same token, you got $1 million tank sitting there.
Right.
And you hate to put a $1 million tank right next to it when you already have one that's never even been used.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So,
I called Aquastore to ask them if they had any brilliant ideas for us.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I've been kicking that around as well, and they said, actually got to talk to the gentleman who designed our tank when it was installed, and they sent me the specs for it. And they said talk about putting concrete blocks in the center and building it up, just to take up some volume on the lower level, so you still have the volume up top for the pressure and the height. He said they won't say yes, because they're not sure if the floor was designed to handle that type of loading.
So how would you,
They didn't give us any way
because you just have a manway on the top of that,
on top of,
the tank.
correct.
How would you get concrete blocks big enough?
You'd pull the roof off. You pull the roof off of the tank and drop them and put them in. Because you're talking about taking up 200,000 gallons worth of volume.
Isn't that a glass-lined tank?
Yes, but the floor isn't, is it? The floor's glass lined as well?
Floor's concrete.
The floor's just straight concrete.
Okay.
But they didn't, other than build a new tank inside that tank that's smaller, or to build, they said the most cost-effective way will be to build a new tank next to it. And granted, that's coming from the, from the,
manufacturer, yeah.
but I've been kicking that around to probably a bunch of different people that I've talked to, and no one's had a light bulb moment to say, do this, and you can take up that amount of volume to be able to start using that tank now. So,
yeah,
it seems like if both of these expansions get done and the overlook connects and we're using over 200,000 gallons a day, and we can do one way in and one way out, maybe that's the trigger where all of a sudden, okay, if it does sit in there for 2 days, we've shortened the detention time because it's not going all the way to J. Hammond Road before it goes to the rest of our system by a day or two, and that will make it work. But until we get the school loop done, the Berry Corner Road extension done, we won't know what our true demand is. Get the overlook connected, so we're kind of still in limbo at this point to move forward with that.
I found it.
Okay.
So to get a 3 to 5 day turnover, to just have to take the Hammond Hill tank out of line and go to the Route 20 tank, it's between 0.16 to 0.26 million gallons per day. Will get you 3 to 5 days of turnover in that tank.
It's the last paragraph of page 13.
Yeah.
0.16 to 0.26.
So just to put that .16 into perspective, it's 160,000 gallons
160,000.
and 260.
260,000, exactly.
During the summer, I believe if I heard him correctly, this was years ago, the operator in Southbridge said they had days where they were capping at 200,000 gallons. The Pike, hot summer days. So I don't think we're that far off from,
So you
from
could be
being there.
you
But,
could
you
be
know,
approaching it.
as a superintendent just mentioned, once, these houses get hooked up, but the big thing is in Sonic Home at 38 to 42,000 gallons a day, and that's 7 days a week.
Right.
That's not just busy on Saturdays and Sundays, that's every day.
Right.
That's a huge turnover, which certainly aids the water conditions
Helps the
here.
water age, right.
Yeah.
Now, if we go consecutive, this is the age-old thing of the interbasin transfers. We can't ship the Southbridge water down to the Oxbow area, right? Or is that?
I think once it's in town, it's,
I believe Southbridge has an allotment for interbasin transfer. I think the main reason we can't go that far is water age.
Okay, or, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
If you developed your own supply, it wouldn't matter,
Okay.
Right.
as long as it stays within the
If it's an own
corporate
supply,
boundaries.
stays within the boundaries,
Right.
you can
You don't have to worry about the
cross
bond.
7 of them. but,
So as long as we can maintain the quality, or the quality of it.
Exactly.
We have to have our own supply.
Well, what if we're consecutive from
No.
Southbridge?
We need to have our own water supply.
okay.
Because it's coming from out of town. Even though it's coming into town, it's still from another basin.
How does Quabbin work?
Oh, you don't talk about that, Mr. Chairman, don't talk about that. That's just like,
Just throwing off fuel on the
That's
fire.
just-
Sorry.
Don't get it going.
don't get me going.
No, she's like ready to
You got
pass
it,
out.
sorry.
She's so-
It just ticked me out. It's like,
Can't
just-
figure that out.
it's
That
like
was- that was
Bristol water passing its lead
We're working
content.
right now too, so.
Yeah, not gonna happen. Sorry.
Okay.
So I think as far as the master plan goes, we're on target, and we have pretty much everything in place to really take the next step to look at if we want to become executive water supply, and that's go meet with Southbridge and try and determine what our cost will be to get water from them if we decide to do that.
Right, I think the sooner that we can get together with the,
We've only been
Partisan
negotiating for a
sub-
couple of years, so.
yeah, well, we haven't, again, we need to sit down and talk with them as soon as possible.
I've had some preliminary discussions with Heather. I don't know if any commissioners want to get on board and join me in those, if you want to vote a subcommittee to join me, and we can go sit down with Heather and maybe the town manager to see where we are and where they want to start, and get that discussion going so we can get something together to bring back to the full board for approval.
You can
And
count
then
me in.
Then from there, we can do that water rate study and see if it's cost effective to do so.
And then we'll have all the information we need to make that decision. What else do we need? Anything that you can think of?
We'd have to do those other 4 additional steps.
Right, and I think we talked.
In order
about
to
this.
apply.
Right.
Yeah, but we're not gonna apply unless the board thinks that
Right.
Yeah,
we can hit all the marks that we're trying to hit.
And really too, to do the rest of this, I mean, we gotta know exactly what we're planning on doing, where the water's coming from, where,
Exactly.
yeah.
So, is anyone else interested other than Mr. Lemansky, or is it?
Depending on when I can.
Okay. All right. And then lastly, I thought I had in the packet, but it's not here, an amendment. Beta gave us an amendment to take us through the process to do public water supply stuff down at Buffinville. I'll have to get that together for our next agenda so we can look at it and approve it. It does fall under, I believe it's just under our amount to fall under our $200,000 grant and that grant does cover that scope of work. So it includes the engineering and all of the outside services to come in and do the drilling and everything else.
Correct.
Does that include Peter as well? That's right, okay.
Yep. Peter, the well driller, actually surveying to locate everything. It's the initial reporting with DEP, testing, so. At the end of this effort, you'll know if either or both of those wells are viable.
Okay, so we will know if they're viable, but it doesn't include the process of having them certified by
No.
DEP
No, not
as
yet.
public water
Correct.
supply.
That would be subsequent to that. Right,
That'd be additional,
exactly.
yeah. Okay, so that,
You can't price that out yet because you don't know if either of these wells can even get to that step yet. Even though the initial testing shows that it looks like there's water there,
yeah,
when you start moving things around, you don't know exactly how the water's moving underground.
okay, but when we do the sampling, all right, we're also gonna check for the viability,
Correct.
chemically.
Yeah, we'll be doing quality and quantity.
Okay, and the first item is the quantity, and then the
Right, if there's no
quality.
quantity,
Same.
there's no point in doing the quality.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. Okay,
And that's true, that's an up to. So I mean, as we're going through, what we've given you is an up to, and if either well doesn't pan out, we just stop there on that particular well.
okay, and then the contract that we have will be, it'll be adjustable. So
Correct.
that
Yeah, it's
if
a
it's
time.
10-step and we get to 6,
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's a time
7, 8, 9,
material
10 around.
with an upper limit. So
Okay.
we only spend what we actually need.
Well, so I'll have that on our next agenda. If I haven't forwarded that to you guys, I'll forward it to you for review before then, and we can discuss it then.
perfect, perfect. Now, has your company done many of these, or as far as starting from scratch?
Yep.
Okay,
Lots and lots.
lots and lots, yeah?
Cool.
Great. All right, well, thank you guys, appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
guys.
Have a good evening.
I hope you feel better. Thank you.
And you're gonna send that PDF out?
Yes, we'll send it
Sure.
out tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
I'll send it out tomorrow.
Get some rest.
A friend of mine had a cold now for like 6 days. Then he went out and started sweating and go home and take a nap. But, not good.
New business.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, new business, let's go with Ford Electric.
Okay. As I discussed at our last week's meeting, Ed LaForte gave us a cost proposal that's attached to go ahead and replace, what is it, 20 2x2 fluorescent lights inside with 20 LED lights, and replace 12 outside halogen lights with 28-watt LED wall packs. The fixtures are available with rebates from National Grid that we can get now, and the cost savings with the rebate is approximately $4,000 on the fixtures. So the cost for the fixtures and Ed's labor to get this done is $4,500.
Doesn't Mass Save pay to put them in and stuff?
I think you still have to pay to put them in. You still have to pay their contractor to do so.
I would just double check real quick before,
Okay.
because I want to say, I know a couple commercial buildings, they came and just retrofitted the whole place for them. No cost, no nothing.
No cost at all.
Yep. Now, this was a couple years ago, so I don't know if the incentives have changed, but,
Okay.
because they seem to be changing monthly. But
Okay,
it doesn't hurt, you can make, just call Mass Save.
just a suggestion is, do we want to move on this subject to information coming back from Mass Save? just so that, just to get it over with, one way or the other?
If you guys wanna do that, and if Mass
Just a thought.
Save
Yeah, I
is
mean, I'm
less.
fine with that.
So you could award up to $4,500 to replace the lights referenced, and if it's cheaper for Mass Save, I'll do that instead, and it will be less than the 4,500.
They might even still let Eddie do it and reimburse, I'm just saying, it's worth the call. So,
I just think something needs to be done down there, especially on the outside lights, because it's not safe.
Didn't we make a motion at the last meeting to at least buy the lights?
We mentioned it, I didn't tell you to do that yet. It was coming up tonight, I figured we'd just get it here and get it done in the
Oh, I thought you were
motion.
getting the lights, because you said it was within your budget.
It was, but we were here tonight, so I figured we'd just do it this way.
yeah, so I'll make a motion to approve this, quote pending, a call for Mass Save with a better deal.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, something, I know originally it was me and Rob, just going to number 2. Jen, I'm fine with that, I mean, I'm leaving soon, if you can't make it, I'll gladly make it, or if somebody else wants to go while I'm still here, I gladly will. I would like to keep it just this committee, or this board, for right now, with all the past that's going on, I think it's better that just our members go there and start fresh and clean and go from there. So I'd imagine a lot of the legwork's done, so I think it's gonna go pretty quick.
Hopefully.
So,
Done.
okay. And then Jen?
Between myself and my husband, we have got a meeting with Congressman Neal for Wednesday, March 28th at 2:30. I had mentioned this to Robin, and she invited the Board of Selectmen, select women, select people. And basically, Robin and I, this is, our intention is to talk to Congressman Neal to find out about getting a matching grant for the 30 million to be able to get our own water supply, consecutive water supply. Congressman Neal is House Ways and Means, so he does have control of a lot of different types of grants and money, so hopefully, and I know this is a long time coming, we talked about this, it has to be numerous months ago, when you gave me authorization to do this, so we finally got him a chance to come out here, and hopefully, we'll see where it goes, and, any little bit's gonna help us, so, thank you.
Thank you.
So this is in 2 days.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, so no one forgets.
Well,
Time goes by.
I don't think we posted it.
I did not post.
Okay, so if there's more than 3 of us, we're gonna have an issue.
Okay.
So if anybody else is looking at going, please let Peter know so he can figure out what we
We can
need.
X you off the list before you get there.
You're off the list. Yeah.
I'll be working, it's okay.
I may
It's
be- I may
basically
be-
gonna be, Robin, myself, and Congressman Neal. I think that's about it. And then Peter's there because he has all the info.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Nice work, Jen, thank you.
No, thank you.
Grinder pumps,
Grinder pumps.
how many more you need now?
We're down, we're down to 4. Steve said in the past, we've ordered 10 at a time to save shipping costs, and it's probably anywhere from a 3 to 6 week lead time. So I didn't know, again, if the commissioners, if they wanted me to set up and order 10 more, so we have them moving into the summer season, so that we're ready. And
I'm okay with that. Everybody else? Kinda what we always done, so.
It's this one. I just wanted to
Yep.
bring it in front of you. So, I can do that.
Do you think it's possible that when we get our report from Keith, that when they have pump problems, that they let us know whether it's a replacement pump?
When they say it's an upgraded system,
Yes.
those are the
Oh,
ones
that's
that
the-
have been
okay.
Yeah, he
replaced.
started keeping track, I
Okay, so
think.
that's the key word I need.
Yeah,
if
the
it's an upgrade.
upgraded systems have
Okay.
been already replaced once.
Okay. Again, my comment is, you know, all of the circuitry that goes into these systems,
Don't even start. Don't even start.
it's just a ton of money, and the thing is, you
It's
get
not.
one electrical storm, I don't know, well,
It's not. It's very, very, very standard across the board. So, I've installed.
standard?
Standard. I've installed every different kind of them, and
Yeah,
I think it's a pretty simplistic system. With the floats now instead of the electronic eye,
yeah, I agree.
it's, a little more forgiving. So, it's good.
So there's no 24-volt system in there?
A what?
24-volt,
What do you mean 24 volt?
that our original units.
240.
No, that's, I understand 240, okay, but there was a portion of it that was 24 volts. And that, I remember that one of the big things that would happen in these lightning storms, because I know the street I live on, Sunset Drive, there was a lightning storm 3-4 summers ago. They lost 7 of these units, electronic units, that are outside the house, that are wired in, that help all of these things run, which would be that magic eye
Yep.
in turning those things on and off. 'Cause-
So the good thing with the eye, you didn't have grease build up on the floats. You know what I mean? You didn't
Yep.
have debris and grease
Or
build up.
debris, yeah.
You know, so much better system. But as we found, they were very sensitive to electrical failure, you know, stuff like that. So we're kind of taking the best of both worlds and going back to the floats. But, you know, on the same token, we don't have 7 bad units when a pump fails.
Okay.
So I don't know if it was a
Again, I've got
bad
the-
manufacturer from Little Giant, but I don't know. I mean, have you ever heard those panels dropping like that without, like, in normal float systems and stuff like that? Like the E1 systems, I've never heard of them dropping like that. Yeah. So I got to imagine it was those eyes and whatever control circuit board was there. So. And this isn't a bad price.
For the pump and all the electronics,
Yeah.
2,500. Again, the pump's listed for 11. Yeah, again, that's your judgment as far as that stuff goes. So,
Advertise.
You know, and plus too, you also gotta remember is that the sewer department
so two
needs
of you.
access to all the power, the service, everything. So by having that panel on the outside, you don't need to
That-
gain access to the home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
no,
there's,
I got that problem tomorrow morning. I know exactly what you're talking about.
you know, so
Yeah.
there's a little more to it, but. In 230, you know, you get a better power than 120. It's just,
I'd like to make a motion that we order 10 units at the price of $25,264.70.
I'll second it.
So that, Peter, that will give us 14 in inventory if the 10 units come in tomorrow?
Yes. And I recommend we take this out of capital.
Okay.
Your capital account has sufficient funds in it to cover that.
Okay, I'd include that in the motion, please.
now here's a quick food for thought. Like I know with the E1s and a lot of the other A lot of the towns will rebuild them themselves, like who do these programs. These are a little bit different of a pump, but now that we're kinda on a newer style, I'd probably ask Keith if it's worth looking at these.
I don't think we have anybody trained or with the knowledge or know-how to do that. If we wanted to talk about sending someone to training to try and get them to have that capability,
Just throw it out there to Keith, because sometimes it's just changing cutters on the bottom, or, I'm not saying, sometimes the pumps are completely bad,
right?
but they're very simple, small pumps, but
Mhm.
he might be able to, you know,
What tends to go on them, Gib?
what's that?
What tends to go on them when they
Like the
go?
cutters, if they wear out, then what happens is it starts shredding, like instead of chopping it.
Yep.
So then what it does, you know, you get like strands of fibers in there, then it binds up the pump, you know, sometimes you can blow a motor. But
Blow a fuse.
it might be to the point where they're so cheap, it's just easier to buy one.
Right.
But on the same token too, it might be
So it's not seals, it's not
correct.
the volute getting worn out from cavitation?
Correct. No, it's none of that. Most of these, whatever I've seen, like, you're not changing oil. You're not doing any
Right.
of that stuff. So it's basically, you know, the cutters on those it's a serrated, almost like two gears.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? That spin, so it cuts it like that. Those wear, it's what I've seen, and then it usually just seizes up something, or grit, or whatever. But just food for thought if, you know, if we're kind of responsible for them and we're paying $1,000 a piece and, you know, $200 or $300 in an hour's labor, sometimes gets them back going.
So if we can save half of the pumps or a third of the pumps,
Yeah.
at least that would give us inventory in case something happened to someone or something.
I don't know,
And
just,
it would be a savings.
just food for thought. Like, I know Sturbridge, they handle all the E1s. They'll put you in a pump, but they take the old one back, go through and rebuild it, put it on the shelf, you know, and the next customer, pop a pump in, take that one, you know, keep going down the line. So, just food for thought. So, and like I said, it might not even be worth it, but you never know.
Do we need a vote?
These quotes still good?
I believe so. I know it's from a, I'll verify that the price is good, but. I'll tell them that's what I have approved.
Do you need a motion on that, or?
Rob made the motion.
Okay.
Paul seconded.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, budget?
Budget. Last week on Wednesday, I sat down with Robin and Donna, the finance director, to go over our budget and finalize everything. We have a slot set up for April 11th to sit down with the finance committee at 7 PM to go through our budget. If you want to start, the first budget there is the water enterprise fund. We can go ahead and go through that and see if you guys have any questions or changes.
This is the one that you emailed us, right? Donna emailed us, yeah.
Yes, I believe so. So this year, for salary, Donna kept it simple and just put my salary under here, which is being, my salary and the benefits associated with it are being, the revenue is coming from the receipts reserved for appropriation account that was funded from ExxonMobil for the superintendent position.
So that fund is called, or that line
Is line
It's called-
51
is
under
called-
revenues
it's called receipts reserve.
for appropriation. On this budget, line 51, she calls it the water superintendent fund, where she's taken $100,000 to fund that position.
All right, but Peter, if I'm not mistaken, there's general, I call them general monies from the ExxonMobil that's coming to our department. Then there's also monies coming from ExxonMobil to pay for a superintendent.
Correct.
Okay, So you've got two accounts.
You have more than,
Well, okay.
so what we have, from what I can see that we have to use, there's two, she calls them receipts, RRFA, receipts reserved for appropriation. There's one for the superintendent, which I believe was set at $250,000, which has already been, you took some out to fund this year's salary. And then there's another one that was set for capital improvements at $1.5 million to fund any capital improvements that had to be done on the water infrastructure, because we now own it since the subsequent IMA with Southbridge. So we're responsible for any catastrophic events or repairs that need to take place on any infrastructure in our town.
And I believe 4 to 5 years ago, the town put $50,000 in that account.
I believe there's a separate account with $50,000 in it. There's a separate line item that she
Right.
showed with $50,000 in it for capital improvement? Or for
It
some
was
type
like
of,
No,
Contingency,
yes.
that was contingency for,
Yes.
Yeah.
Grand Major.
I believe that's still
That's what
sitting
that
there.
was for.
I think it was a little bit less, but yeah, there's still 40-something thousand in there, but.
Okay. All right.
So,
The- All right, I'll go ahead.
so you'll see,
Continue, Peter.
so my salary's there. Maintenance and equipment, I set at $10,000, which is consistent with last year. Engineering, I set at $20,000 in case we need some of that to move forward with becoming a consecutive water supply or anything like that comes up in the future for this year. Legal expenses, I increased from $5,000 to $25,000, again, in case we need legal to help us through the process of becoming a consecutive water supply and negotiating with, more so for negotiating with Southbridge. Hopefully that's high and we won't have to use it. I put $2,000 in there for training moving forward. You'll see the loan administration fees are down to 0 because all the betterment stuff, all of our loan debt has been paid off by the settlement. And general insurance is there. The group health insurance is there, is new. Group life insurance, Medicare. The OPEB contribution is
It's benefits for retirement.
personal, post-employment benefits, other post-employment benefits. So it's to cover the health insurance liability for retirees because the town has to pay 50% after people retire. So it's future funding that obligation.
And just to be clear, Peter, this is a totally new line item.
This is totally
our,
new. That
budget.
Donna set at 14% of the salary line item. That's where that 10,752 came from, because this is also on our sewer as well, on our sewer budget. So it's
Okay.
other post-employment benefits contribution, mainly for, again, the health insurance obligation that the town has for retirees at 50%, which is what the town pays upon retirement.
All right, because we were never involved as far as members, as far as benefits go. So, I'm hearing this for the first time. Is the town of Charlton, for retirees, pays 50% of their health insurance?
I believe so. Until they qualify for Medicare, then I believe they have to get onto Medicare.
And so then it stops?
I believe so.
Okay.
I'm not, that's, again, I'm going back a few years, I think, to when I was involved.
And-
That might have changed since then, but I believe that was how it was set up.
Again, I think it's just good that, you know, again, we know these things. Not that, I'm certainly not gonna go and try to change anything, but I certainly would want to have knowledge. If someone says, you know, what's that number for?
Yep.
But it's more for, it's town employees, it's not the board.
Correct.
Correct, exactly.
Okay, just
Yep.
wanna make that
Yep.
clear.
We're like the forgotten children, we don't get nothing.
And indirect expenses are at 20,200. And the next page after this, there's a full sheet that explains how Donna arrived at that.
So that is doubled from last year.
It has.
And the explanation is on,
The following page.
It goes by our budget cost, and our budget cost is more FY 2018 than FY 2017.
Just a percentage.
right, but I guess,
And next year, our budget, if we do not become a consecutive water supply, all the debt will be removed. So our operating budget will be approximately $284,000, so our indirect cost should go back to being cut in half. But again, to look at what, that indirect cost covers all the work that every office in the town hall does for us. And I know that water is not that, they do handle the debt, and they also handle all of the betterment stuff and all of the betterment reimbursement for us. So there is quite a bit of work being done in the town hall for us.
so I just want to stay on this $20,000 here for a little bit longer, okay? So general insurance property estimated at 4% increase. So that's what the insurance is going to increase, that's the 1,500. Then we get health insurance, employee share. Haven't we covered that up above here somewhere, Peter? In our budget when it comes to departments and group health insurance?
You're looking at direct costs?
I apologize, yes. Go back to the indirect costs. Our budget for last year,
Is on line 40.
it's on line 40. All right, so
It was $574,603.
right, that's what we budgeted. All right.
That's what you budgeted.
Correct. So with 2018 budget expiring on June 30th, how much money are we going to be giving back that we haven't spent out of that $574,000?
Should be about 562.
No, because you paid all debt. 300,000 of that was debt that you paid.
Okay.
So you're probably gonna
Well-
give back, I'm in the ballpark, $130,000. You're gonna give back your $100,000 for engineering consultant on line 16.
Yep.
And under total salaries, you're gonna give back probably 30,000, maybe more. So maybe 140, 150
But wasn't,
is what you're gonna turn in.
right, and again, I know I'm a pain in the neck about this, but we carried Kevin Pecos' salary last year with the understanding that that would be reimbursed with the Exxon $250,000. So that should be negative out of last year's budget, because we've gotten reimbursed for that. So not only is it the $100,000, it should be also the $78,000 approximately of what we paid Kevin Pecos. For instance.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to
Okay,
timeline when Kevin was here. He was here in FY 17,
Half of it. Because he started.
so you're going
in
back to
May.
FY 17, not FY 18. So that's,
well, actually, FY,
He started in May, so it would have been 16 and 17.
which is he would have started in FY 17, finished in FY 18. So the problem is if you take funding from the Exxon Mobil money to fund this position, you're gonna short yourself in the future to fund it from there moving forward. You'll get it back in retained earnings.
no, my first objective is to lower the indirect cost, because the indirect costs are being overstated by a budget that's overstated.
Again, your budget is overstated probably by $150,000
Which is,
on the high side.
which is over 20%. So that's at least 20% of the
But that was the-
20,000 is $4,000.
That was the budget you guys asked for, right?
You've been working on this,
So you're looking at an indirect cost.
okay?
of about
How much asking did you ask of us? A lot of these numbers come from somewhere else.
I'm asking you now, though. It's in
Okay,
front of you
well,
now.
Okay, well, good, so I'm getting back to you, at least I am, and
So-
everyone else can chime in here, but again, I don't think that, the,
I think with all the work
Total-
that was done for the water betterment stuff this year and everything that is continuing to be done and paying the debt and doing everything else, yes, $20,000 seems high, but if you look at cost per employee and what the town spends and what they've spent previous to when we didn't have indirect costs and what they subsidized us prior to that, it doesn't, just, no.
it's, did anyone work overtime to do this, or was this their regular time?
Regular time,
Yeah.
my guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think we're both right.
I have a
Which
pro,
is,
again, I
it
have a
shoulda,
pro.
it shoulda, Mr. Pecos' salary should've got clout with that, but on the same token, it's an additional $2,000 that, you know, across the hall's doing quite a bit of work, so.
Which is fine, you know, I mean, but the thing is we've been paying for that over the years,
No, I understand.
consistently. All right, so that comes with the territory.
But I think
Because,
last year was.
because
the
last
first-
year, I'm sorry,
Sorry, I think last year was the first time we put anything substantial to that budget. Hasn't that
For
budget
indirect-
always been like,
Well, it shows you, FY 2017, the indirect costs were 10,900. FY 2018, they were 9,893. And again, this year, because she's using the $574,000 number, it also increased because I think she's also including the related benefits for the associated departments as well. So it's more so a true cost per person, not just salary. She's including their cost of health insurance, their cost of Medicare and our contribution to the retirement, so. I think Donna has taken what was done before, done a lot of research on it and come up with a more refined process to really lay it out and show us how she's getting there. And again, next year, if we don't become a consecutive water supply and our water debt is gone, she'll be using our budget from this year, which is $284,000, which would make our indirect costs half of what they are this year. Because there's no debt, so there's no work for them to handle betterment payments or betterment questions or anything like that. We are still paying invoices from there. We still have costs associated with water that go through the collector, the finance director. They're still processing payroll for us, so there are costs there.
yeah, I agree. Moving on.
but the costs are consistent with the percentages. And
Of
all
the
I'm making, the
budget.
point is that the $574,603 is not a real number.
Correct.
As far as last year, as far as
This year.
this year's budget, because of A, what we're returning, and two is the monies that we haven't been credited for, as far as what we had paid for to Mr. Pecos, the $78,000. Which I know that doesn't come into the indirect, but that's still something that's hanging out there, that there were outside funds that paid for that employment, which shouldn't even be part of the budget.
I'm trying to understand if there were funds from FY 2018 to fund Mr. Pecos. I don't believe there was.
I don't think there was.
That's why, because this salary line item of 113, I believe, was pretty much intact when I started. I don't believe there was any funds from this.
We were
from
under the
this.
assumption that that's where it was coming from. It was a direct subsidy through Exxon.
It was taken from your budget, and I understand it was
So we were
talked
paying
to
it-
that you would
it
be
was-
reimbursed from Exxon for that.
Correct. We were paying for it out of our sewer budget.
Sewer, water, wherever it came from. It hasn't been returned.
Cause there was no money in the water budget, so you couldn't pay him from that, there was no money in there.
But there was the surety that,
It was,
when the funds came in from ExxonMobil, which were, in theory, in our mind, or at least in my mind, there were two checks. One was for the total payment, and then the second one was for the $250,000 to pay for the superintendent, and that would pay for it either 2 to 3 years. That's what it was supposed to do.
and we were gonna use some of that grant money, because he was a subcontractor,
Correct.
that he could fall under, that $200,000 grant from DEP, because he was doing some of this, he was working with Beta.
So,
I'm just telling you how we
Right.
originally, this is how it was brought to us.
I don't recall seeing any payments from the grant for Kevin.
Well, I know.
no,
That's what I'm
no,
saying.
no, exactly.
But
So-
they should have.
So the thing is when we look at the superintendent's salary this year is, or this coming budget, that 250 that we started out with, that was supposed to go towards the superintendent, minus the 78,000, is 2,714. So there's $172,000 there that's gonna cover salary, so it shouldn't even, either your salary shouldn't even be listed as a budget item, because it's already paid for.
You guys still have to fund it. There still has to be revenue to fund it, and that's why it's listed down bottom.
Okay, so,
It's still an expense that has to get, that expense has to get appropriated annually.
correct. I
And
don't
that's
disagree with
that's why
that.
the budget's there, so we can appropriate that expense. And so if you look at the top half to line 41 is all expenses, from line 42 down is all revenue, and where we're gonna pay the expenses from. So under revenues, she's anticipating $30,000 from other fees true up with Southbridge. Because I put $100,000 into our capital replacement and equipment line item on line 37, just in case something happens and we have a major break that we have to repair, the funding will be there for us to do so. We won't have to go to town meeting for approval. She's funding that on line 46 from the Water Capital and Debt Fund, which is that other reserve account that's sitting there with $1.5 million in it. She is taking approximately $55,000 from retained earnings to balance the budget. And again, the $100,000 from the RRFA account for the superintendent's salary.
What happens to the difference between your salary and that 100,000?
She's including my benefits. Between the 76, why isn't she funding that at 76,000 to match my salary?
Yeah.
She's including my benefits in there. So I think if you include my health insurance and the other benefits that come along with the position, it balloons it up
And
to around 100. So she's funding all of that with
what happens to 46 if it doesn't get expended this year?
line 46.
So you took 100 to put into capital in cases.
Oh, line 46 is revenue. So if line 37 does not get expended, the
Yeah, I'm sorry,
100,000
37.
will show up as retained earnings. When it shows up for retained earnings, we
Yep.
can ask her to put it back into that reserve,
Okay,
receipts
so
reserve.
it'll go back to
We can,
us.
only if it comes back as retained earnings, and we can ask her to put that back into the account we took it
It
from.
doesn't go
if
in
we
the
don't
general
use it.
fund.
No, it stays as retained earnings for our enterprise fund.
And the other thing I would think would make sense, that would make clear up some of this, what year did they zero out the water side? Because at one point, water always had numbers, and I think it was 2 years ago,
Okay.
they zeroed everything out on that side. And that seemed to, you remember when they zeroed out the water side because there was nothing coming in?
Because we had no revenue.
Right, there was no revenue
But they
on the-
wanted to they had to put an expense to it.
Right, but then shortly after, we got the settlement, and then all this blew up on the water side,
Yeah.
which,
Thank you,
I know
Alex, because
exactly.
what just came to my mind is that the $100,000 that you're putting in the capital, Okay, that's now part of our budget. That's part of the $574,603.
No, our budget this year is only 284.
Okay, okay. What was in the line item for capital last year? Wasn't it over 300 grand?
No, that was sewer, is that high.
Oh, that was sewer.
Water was only 28,000.
28,000. And what did we use of that? Zero.
No, I believe you used 14.
I don't know.
Fix a couple hydrants.
I believe you used 14.
Yeah, but if we fixed hydrants, like especially the one under 20, we would have gotten the money back from the insurance
We
company.
did not pay from capital, the town has an insurance account line item that they paid, and our reimbursement from the insurance company paid that back. You had, you used funding out of this to pay stuff before I was here. What about all of the gate valves that were fixed on Glenmere Road? Didn't Whitewater give you a big invoice that, actually, when I was just coming on, we paid?
That was like 12.
Right, so.
Yeah.
So there's probably 16 left, so you have spent from there. There's probably 14,000 sitting there left.
All right.
Yeah, you know what, I think you are right, because we fixed that cover down there in front of Oxbow a few times. That was a couple thousand.
I guess to put all of this in a simple form is, and thanks to Alex and him talking about those numbers he was talking about.
Remember, I think it was 2 years ago, Rob.
And it went to zero?
She made
Yeah.
Steve zero everything out, but it kind of altered the budget in that sense, and now we're back up to that $250,000, $500,000, and it doesn't seem to have come from anywhere.
You've always had debt to pay for.
No.
Because the debt never went away, but that was always paid for by betterment, so it wasn't a
Right.
cost that you had any control over.
Most of the other lines populated on
zeroed
the
out.
water side of the budget. She kind of zeroed out, because there was no revenue coming in.
There was no revenue other than the commitment by town meeting of what was coming from the electric plant down on 16.
Millennium.
Millennium.
So I guess,
That's what did that. But just let me, before I lose this, let's just take this year's numbers. The claim is that, or the estimate is, we're gonna have a $574,000 and some change as far as the cost of our budget.
yeah,
I would think that, based on that number was used in determining what our indirect cost was gonna be based on percentages of our budget to the town's budget.
yeah.
Okay. I think to make this true, would be that we go back and we look at the prior year's budget and how much money was returned back to the account. So in other words, if the prior year budget was 230,000 and we only used 130,000, then we put 100,000 back in. So if we put it back in, I'm saying is we should get credit for it on the indirect cost. So the
Now,
easiest way to
They
do
have to
it,
do the same thing.
who would have to do the same
They're
thing?
$26,296,000.
Exactly.
They don't spend their full amount, so they'd have to take what they spent and do the exact same thing.
Okay, fine, do it, but I think that would be the fairest way of doing it. Because now we're gonna get, our estimate is based on the projections. And in fact, we've got some estimates in there, and we put them in there so that we've got some safety valves, so that if in fact the rainy day comes, that we have the safety valves to rely on. What if we don't use them, then why did we spend the indirect cost, which, as far as our percentage goes, it's, again, it's 2.19% of the budget. So I'm saying is, somehow, some way, I think that needs to get balanced out. I don't mean to give you a headache.
You're not?
Okay.
Can you give me can you make that a motion, though?
You want me to make that a motion? That we ask them to balance the,
Unless the rest of the commission is on board with that and they want me to move forward with it, yeah.
Okay, I'd like to make that a motion that our indirect costs goes through leveling based on last year's returned funds or unused funds.
Based on used
Used
funds.
or unused, right, because what we return is unused.
I'll second that. Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Passes unanimous.
I'll do the same for sewer.
Yeah?
Okay.
Well, let's see how it works.
Okay. So that was the main concern for water. The rest of the water budget is good. Everyone's okay with it?
Yeah, and I think, you know, coming up next year, you'll probably have to start dividing your salary between the two. Or you're gonna have to find a happy medium, because right now it's not, you know.
If I started the process that way where, because we're doing water.
Correct, that's what I'm
between
saying.
everyone, and it worked out, it wasn't much different than the way it is now.
Yep.
If we were to split everybody in half.
Yep.
It's probably within $8,000 of each other, as far as, if, like I said, if I put all three of us together, divided it evenly and split between water and sewer, it's pretty much right in the middle of where our two budgets are, so.
Well, actually, next year with zero debt, you'll almost be able to run it out of one account. You won't have to have two budgets. You just have a water sewer budget.
No, because you
No, it's
still
still-
have
it's still gonna be
separate, it's still
split.
separate enterprise funds, so you're still gonna have separate budgets.
Because we have income.
Oh, that's true.
Because we have revenue coming from Southbridge.
I
So-
think the,
Yeah, that's true.
we need to finish the process of going to Southbridge and making the decision whether we go consecutive or whether we don't go consecutive. I have some real concerns that if we don't go consecutive this year, that we have to take a hard look at carrying two superintendents. So, and again, but we don't know that yet because we haven't fully gone through the process. So that could possibly have an impact on our budget. So I just wanted,
And I think too, we have Steve kind of divided up over some of the inspections with the Exxon projects going on.
With water stuff,
Right?
yes. I think if there was other revenue coming in where we could fund it better, then yes, because again, my plan was to take Steve's salary, split it in half.
Yeah.
So he's paid by water, but there's not enough revenue coming in, and not knowing exactly how much retained earnings there are, we don't want to end up short, so we're just keeping it the way it was.
But we should be able to get out of that $100,000 a year reimbursement, a portion of Steve's salary. So on top of everything, we're getting $300,000 towards engineering oversight from ExxonMobil.
that's over 3 years. So they
Correct, it's
They capped it
$100,000
at
a
100 a
year.
year, right.
Now, technically, it shouldn't have started yet.
Now, is that for Chris?
That's for whoever,
For
again,
whoever we use.
yeah.
Okay.
Because, and again, the elephant in the room is Exxon, excuse me, not Exxon, but Kleinfelder, unable to complete the work in order for this project to start in late June, early July. And they're saying they're putting it off till September or October. So, what are they gonna have, 6 weeks of digging, if that? So, I don't know.
I don't know yet. Hopefully,
No,
we're
that's-
gonna,
that's-
again, we'll talk about that in a few minutes, hopefully.
Okay.
We can.
So, but you have to account for some of you and Steve's in there because at Chris's rate, whatever it is, $250, you'll get
Right.
50 hours if you're lucky. So,
So, the water budget, other than indirect costs, were there any questions or concerns? Okay. Sewer? Sewer budget? Under expenses, we have the commission, we have your stipend. We have Steve's salary, Sue's salary, and a little bit of overtime, not knowing what's gonna come forward with these projects when they start taking place in case they require inspections after our normal operating hours. After salaries, we move on to our sewer expenses. Last year, under your maintenance and equipment, line 14, it was $718,000. That included any routine maintenance expenses, and it also included Veolia's contract obligations. So what I did this year was I separated out Veolia's obligations and called it, and into line 15 and call that sewer plant operations, so that we know that that $490,000 is gone right off the top, because we're obligated to spend that, which leaves us $250,000 for maintenance and equipment for electric, propane, all of our routine bills, and whatever else we have for unforeseen costs at this time based on breakage and repairs and whatever happens moving forward next year. For engineering consultant,
Excuse me, Pete, just for comparison is, so when you put those two numbers together that you're budgeting for 2019,
yes,
you're approximately coming up with 730, 740?
correct. So I increased it by about $30,000.
Okay.
Just for
Thank you.
unknown, just for
Okay.
unknowns.
And just to, if we were still with Wood and Curran, it would be well over 800,000.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. That's good. Engineering consultant, I level funded at 10,000. I don't believe we've used any of that or much of that this year. Legal expenses, again, I've level funded at 10,000. Training, I put in for $1,000. The loan administration fees, Worcester Regional Retirement, general insurance, general health insurance, the group life, all of those are fixed. You'll see, again, the group health insurance is increased because now we're gonna have Steve and Sue on there instead of just Sue, instead of just Steve. Medicare,
Well, no, it's, and you also.
no, I'm on water only.
You're only on water?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, my full health insurance is coming on the water. You'll see the OPEB contribution, which is,
If I may, I'm sorry, Peter, but just a suggestion.
Mhm.
Is there a reason why this isn't moved up with, next to salaries? Because it's a cost of employees.
the OPEB contribution, or
No, no,
all
no,
of this?
All that stuff.
All of this stuff?
Yeah, yeah, the general insurance, the group insurance, the life insurance, the Medicare.
I think this is just how it's been routinely done, and
Yeah.
this is how, because it's an expense. I know it's a salary or an employee-related expense, but it's not direct salary. So
No,
it's
correct.
just an expense, and this is how, again, I understand it kind of gets buried with other operating expenses that you don't really have. The operating expenses you have control over, correct? Which is, these are kind of fixed, much like the salaries.
Right, so that if I was going through the budget and I'm looking at my total cost of employees, that I would
Okay.
want those up with my salary so that I know the total cost. And that way there is, I could compare this year to last year to
For salary.
2 years ago. That's my only suggestion. So, I know, does this come from the treasurer? Or the
Yes.
accountant?
I think it's pretty standard, it goes below though. In most ones that I've seen, budgets.
Well, I don't
This is, I mean,
disagree, but
Yeah, but all the coding's all sequential, Rob. So the computer may have done it too.
Oh, no, definitely, right, but my suggestion is I think it could go, it should go up above. And that OPEB, it definitely is part of the cost.
yes.
Well, it's a benefit, but,
It's an obligation to the town, it's not, it's a benefit to us if we get there.
and how was that number arrived at?
The OPEB,
Yeah,
14% of your salary line item, so it should be 14% times the 98,387 in line 11.
and that, Sue, one more time, what does that stand for? The acronym OP?
Other post-employment benefits. Other
Okay, so post-employment.
post-employment benefits,
So that would be after someone leaves,
after they retire.
after they
There's
retire.
no, if they leave before they have their 10 years in and they can
Right.
retire, then there's nothing there.
Okay, so if we're paying into this.
Yeah, you get the money back.
Exactly,
where
do we
you're
get the
going.
money back? No, so we
I don't know.
just say, yeah, go ahead, we'll have to kick in the bucket for everybody else.
It's kind of like Social
It's
Security.
exactly like Social
You
Security,
just dump
yeah.
in and hopefully you
Yeah.
get it out at the
Uh,
end.
You don't have a choice, basically, though.
Well, thank you.
A choice. So, after the OPEB contributions, you have your indirect expenses, which are spelled out on the next page. The only thing different from one page to the other is the percentage, and that percentage is applied to the same salary cost as the water. And I will ask Donna if we can have our indirect costs be based on used funds instead of our approved budget.
Approved
Used, expended funds
versus
approved budget.
approved projected, because these are projection, meaning the word budget.
After indirect expenses, we have $44,000 again for our annual INI, which you guys have been carrying for a while, and it seems like we're using some of it here and there, so that's in there again.
Peter, we just go back for a second, is sewer debt service.
We haven't gotten there yet.
Oh, we haven't, sorry, okay.
And last under expenses, line 28 is meter purchase of $10,000, which is what you guys have been carrying probably for the last 4 or 5 years, so that's consistent. So for operating costs that we have control over, you have your salaries at $98,387 and our total sewer expenses at $969,931. For expenses that we don't have control over, you have your debt service. Oh, I'm sorry, and our capital outlay at line 37 at $100,000, we have control over. That's part of our annual operating budget. Last year, you funded it at $385,000. I think when you funded that, you always carried your capital improvement plan in your operating budget, but you never really spend it, and you used $508,000 from retained earnings to balance your budget last year. So rather than keeping your capital replacement line item at $385,000, of which you don't really use, I brought that down to $100,000. Again, much like water, just to cover any emergencies that take place or anything that's not a recurring operating expense that might be a larger expense, we can take out of our capital replacement equipment. And then if you decide to do any larger capital projects, we can fund those when retained earnings come out in the fall. And we can just take it from retained earnings and put it directly towards some type of capital improvement project, rather than having that money sit in your budget and never use it and just keep turning it back. If you guys don't like that idea, it doesn't matter to me, we can change it. But
Does anybody have a rough spitball kind of cost on what the two RBCs will take?
$550,000
Each or combined for the two of them?
combined. And that was probably 2 years ago, from what I've been told. But with this headworks analysis being done, we're hoping that Ty and Bond will say, instead of fixing those, maybe if we can use that footprint in the treatment plant to do something different, new technology that might be more beneficial, who knows? But I think after our headworks analysis is done and we figure out what's going on and they look at what we can do to make changes or improvements, hopefully we'll be in front of you with, this is what's recommended to make improvements to get that plant to run more efficiently. And if the RBCs are the most economical way to do that, then yeah, we can look at that and do that. So as far as debt goes, those numbers, again, I had no input on those. That's the debt of what we're carrying for the Phase 2 project.
Pete, when do we have the date when that's gonna be totally paid
We
off?
don't have a date yet when they're done. Assume 2 to 3 years, but it's hard, because the debt was borrowed after the project was completed, or as the project moved forward. So I don't have an answer for that at this time. It's anticipated to be in the next couple of years.
Okay.
Because the debt might not be congruent with the betterments, is the problem, because the betterments weren't assessed until after the project was done, and some of the debt was borrowed before that, so It's not necessarily in line directly with the betterments.
Okay, and if I recall, we've had 3 improvements at the treatment plant.
Yes.
It was phase 1, then it was phase 2 and 3 together, and then we did.
There was no phase 3.
Well, they called it.
Phase 2 was the lake in the school?
Phase
No,
2
that
was
all
the.
phase 2.
Phase 2 was the lake, phase 3
Was the
was
sewer
the
plant.
center. And what happened was they joined them.
Yeah, so phase 2, as I know, was approved in 1999, I believe, at town meeting for the
Right,
lake and the
right,
school.
right. Okay, then there was borrowing,
Yes.
which went back to, I think, 2008,
Yes.
to rehab the treatment plant.
That was approved at town meeting,
That was
yes,
approved at town meeting.
to borrow. 2.8
To
million?
borrow with no betterments attached to it.
Correct.
And
There
it
was
wa-
no,
the
there was
assumption.
no funding.
No funding, the assumption was that it was gonna be paid for by privilege fees. And the
Yes.
largest privilege fee was coming from Masonic Home.
Yes.
The $1.7 million or
Yep.
1.8. And then it was, back then, when they put the moratorium in there, it was assumed that we're just gonna sell everything out and we would get all this money coming in from privilege fees.
Yes.
Well, I'm still trying to find, what have we collected, or what, not collected, I guess it would be, what have we charged for privilege fees, since that time? So we can put that towards
Yep.
our total debt here, which was, a total of, what, over 2,800,000, something like that?
Yeah. And,
And then, so what did we charge, and how much of a deficit is there?
mhm.
If there's a deficit at all. I mean,
Right.
luckily, we've had
Storts.
Storts at 150,000, and then we've got the brewery,
Mhm.
as far as a large amount. And I don't, and again, there's dribs and drabs, but
Right.
I know one fellow who's got a housing project, and I think his is 115,000.
It's 85, yeah.
Okay, so with those added up, it'd be nice to know where we are
And that's,
as far as a shortfall, we're dead even, or are we ahead?
and that's why it's, the process to assess the privilege fees is not a clean one. When the assessors put the privilege fee on to a property, it's put on as a betterment, because that's the only mechanism that they
Correct,
have.
yeah.
So they can't, it's hard for them to differentiate a privilege fee versus a betterment, because it's attached to the property as a betterment.
I think the date would be
It's-
the telling
I
story.
know Donna has hired Mark Abrams to come in, Abrahams or Abrams?
Abram, I don't know.
He's been here working with Donna, going through all of the sewer betterments, privilege fees and everything, to come up with a master file to get you the information that you're asking for, and it's not done yet. They've been working on it.
So they're working on it.
They are
Good.
working on it. And when that is done, I know they have pretty much everything identified, and there's probably 4 or 5 properties that they still have questions on, that we're trying to get them the information for, so that they can do that. And for some reason, I think the borrowing for that, the 2007 or 2008 project was only a 10-year borrowing. So that's ending soon as well, because I believe that
Right.
project finished in 09 or
In 2020, I
2010.
believe, it's somewhere around there.
So
Supposed to end.
everything's kind of coming together at the same time. So right now, we haven't had any unfunded liabilities for debt, so.
Until we get the audit completed by,
Well, and I think one of Donna's other big concerns is that as our privilege fee payments were coming in from the landowners, they might not have been tracked as privilege fee payments, so it might have went into our general revenue, and we might have seen that as retained earnings versus being set aside to pay down future debt.
really,
Yes.
it's a pretty big oversight.
Well, so that's why
They're put in the wrong
trying to
bucket.
get all that information together and make sure that everything is there and that we have enough funding set aside, like you said, to cover the debt that we have. So that process is taking place.
All right, which should be, what they're trying to do is they're trying to put this debt
Yep.
in order.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And maybe, again, it's probably me again, but I see this whole section of sewer debt service, sewer capital outlay.
No, I'm sorry.
As-
The sewer capital outlay is our control of what we have to spend for next year.
No, right, but here's the point I wanna make, is those items which total 820 plus 100, which is 920,300 and some odd dollars. The people who provide service for our department up here pretty much have nothing to do with this.
Why not? They
What?
process the betterment payments, they process the invoices, they process the privilege fees.
What do they process for capital replacement equipment?
They process our payments when we have to pay a contractor.
Because that $920,000, all right, that's
Almost half our budget.
that almost matches our total cost of operation of our sewer treatment plant.
But there is cost associated with them to handle that funding. We don't, our office does not handle any of that.
Yeah,
So somebody else does.
Well, no,
Somebody
and I
else takes the
believe-
payments in, somebody else puts those payments out.
I believe somewhere in here is the cost of our loan. What was it, $4,500? Is that money
Loan
we paid from-
administration fees,
Loan administration.
those are to the state for your low-interest loans, I believe.
Those are
aren't-
to the state.
Those are not to
Right.
other departments.
All right.
If
We,
there's-
we don't agree with it, we don't like it, we're never gonna change it.
Well, no,
So
we-
unless you're gonna implement the system
We have
that
to-
lets us
okay.
take over all the money and accounting.
You're gonna have to hire 2 more people and you'll end up
This is
spending
what
more
it
money.
gets.
Well, hold on, just to set the record straight.
I agree with your record.
This was 4 or 5 years ago on town floor, the indirect cost was changed,
Okay.
okay? So it's not that it can't be changed. It can be changed.
Anything can be changed, I understand that.
Exactly.
But I think with the description that's in front of us, doesn't seem unreasonable for the work that we get done on our behalf up here. When we process payments, it goes through 2 different offices up here. When we process payroll every week, it goes through 2 different offices up here.
Right, and that's the top half of this budget, Peter. Right.
But when we
I'm talking
process,
about
when
the
we process
midpoint
Veolia payments, it goes through 2 different offices up here.
here. Yep,
So every part of this budget goes through an office up here, or 2, or 3. So we get the support from the offices up here. Might it be, could you argue it should only be 80% of what it is, or 7, maybe? But I think there's finally a spelled out way and a description of how she's getting there. Then the other thing is, they're using the full budget that includes the school.
yep.
They pull the school out. And our stuff doubles, so.
Go, move forward, I'm all set, I'm not gonna,
Okay.
and there's no granite here for me to pound my head against it, is there? Okay.
So,
Enough hardwood, that'll work.
Yeah.
Some
hey,
some good old-
so moving on to,
Yeah.
if we just move on to revenues, and we can finish up. So if there's no objection with changing our capital down from 385 to 100, that's probably the biggest change of this entire budget. As far as revenue goes, our budget's balanced with 0 from retained earnings. So I think that's a big thing to point out. Part of that's because we took out 285,000 from capital. Part of that is because our usage charges, I calculated them based on, again, the 9% increase in actual, went back and went through how many bedrooms we have and what our actual gallon usage was over the previous year, and moved that forward and included the surcharges that we were currently getting. This does not include surcharges from Treehouse or surcharges from any other IPP customer that we might start surcharging over the next year when we implement an IPP program. So I think our usage charge and our revenue is, should be a realistic one, so it might even be more. Privilege fees is down there, she included that as our revenue. Again, where she got that number from, I'm not exactly sure, but that came from Donna. Retained earnings is at 0. Betterments is there at 312,000. And then the transfer in from the general fund, based on the agreement for using the Millennium funds to pay down the debt, is there. So our total budget's balanced, and it's balanced with 0 money from retained earnings, which I think is kind of a big deal.
I can't help myself, but that retained earnings is understated by the 78,000 that was supposed to be transferred out of Exxon money back to our account.
Duly noted.
What are you looking like you don't know what I'm talking about?
I think you're on 2 different budgets, that's why I'm just,
Well, the thing is the.
so you're saying Pecos was paid from
Sewer.
where?
Somewhere.
There's no line item here that he was paid from.
If he was paid from either water or, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. If he was paid from either water or sewer, it would come out of the approximately 2.5 year settlement that we got. So it would come out of the 2.5 years of what's technically funding the superintendent's position. So you would subtract it from that.
But it wasn't, that's what Rob's saying.
Right.
Mr. Lemansky's saying that it should be funding from there. It should be reimbursed. It was funded from
It should have been
somewhere else.
reimbursed, and we haven't received it from that, from that.
I'll find out where it's funded from to make sure that.
See where the checks will come from.
Do you want,
You guys signed, you must have signed
It was
payroll vouchers,
It was
correct?
$2,000 a week, straight salary,
well,
minus a little bit of overtime.
But you signed it as part of the other payroll vouchers. He was
That's
part of
correct.
that. So I can find those and see what line item he came out of.
Yeah.
Okay.
again, I apologize to everybody, but I just, I got the Rottweiler syndrome here. It's just not letting go.
That's fine. And again,
Yo, lockjaw?
I've been trying to get good answers for you on that, and I just haven't got them yet, so I will
Right.
keep looking.
Right.
And maybe if I get some decent answers, you can kind of release.
Okay.
So the last item under budget, you see a letter from the finance director, asking that the board implement a policy that moving forward, any questions or requests to her be made through my position, so that not one member can go and ask for changes to be made.
I'd just like to let the board know is that I had gone up to see the treasurer. I had one outstanding issue, totally different subject, but I also wanted to deliver to her the document that I had been given. In fact, all the board members were given it when Keith was the town accountant, about the formula that Keith had used. And when I was having a discussion with Donna, she told me that she already had a copy of that, so, which was fine. And then I had mentioned the fact about the $78,000 to where it's affecting our retained earnings. And was told that she had no control of those monies. Those monies, any disbursements would have to come through Robin's office, and that when that money did come in, that they, meaning Robin's office and the town accountant, had to submit to DOR the history or exactly where that money's going and how it was to be spent. There was a term for it. I know, I think it would be valuable for us to make sure that we get a copy of that, because we already knew from documents that we had received of how that money was to be divided up. And also, I'm just want to make sure of those accounts, so that we're aware of those accounts, and those accounts would be as transparent as line items that we have on our budget. I just think that's a wise way of doing things. So, and just to mention, the other thing that I had gone up there on a personal issue was, and I don't want to call it an issue, but a personal request. I had gone to that office probably 4 months ago and had asked for a copy of the monies received by the town through Charter Communication over the years. And she had said, it's funny you asked, because, well, I don't know if she said funny you asked, but she had said, I just finished doing a report for the cable committee, and the report went back 10 years. So I asked her if she could send me a copy of it, and she said sure, and she emailed it to me. So I don't know if that set a fire off or whatever, but as far as a town employee saying that in order to go in and talk to them, whether I'm just a straight taxpayer or if I'm a member of another board or a board, again, I do not think that we should have a special process for it, that it should be a automatic thing, that anyone who works in the town hall who has a position that heads up a department, if you, either as a taxpayer or as a member of a town board and you have a question, there shouldn't be any reason why they can't answer it. And I can certainly understand when someone says, geez, I haven't got time for you today, let's make an appointment, fine. I just went in there cold call, and I was able to sit down and have a discussion. So,
Did you ask for any changes
did I ask for any changes?
on behalf of this board?
No, I didn't ask for anything on behalf of the board, but I had
Yeah,
made known that the $78,000 should be coming back to this department. Or not department, should be coming back to this commission because of the fact of not only what was stated in our meeting, but it was clearly stated in the meeting, and also funds that came from ExxonMobil specifically said there was a fund. I thought it was 200,000. I could be corrected at 250. As far as what it was supposed to do was go to pay for the superintendent, and that's when we hired Pecos. So.
So you basically went in there and offered up information and asked for information.
I offered information knowing that we were deep in the process of budget, and knowing that, for whatever reason, I'm hung up on this indirect cost. Because, when you look at our operating budget, it's over 10% of our cost to run the meats and potatoes of our department, which is that $900,000.
Well, my personal view is that any one of us should be able to go and grab information and, access information. We're not allowed to make decisions, that's what the board's here for. If you weren't making a decision or, then I don't see any problem with this. But I don't think there should be, and I agree 100% in regards to, if she don't have the time or needs to make an appointment, that's well within her reason, her budget doesn't, her salary doesn't come out of our budget. If you guys wanna make a policy, by all means, but, I guess what is the flow of communication or information coming through?
I think if you do not cold call and send her an email and say you want to meet and set up a meeting, and then make sure that you are clear that any questions or any information you're asking for, any information you give is from you and not from the commission, then that's fine. But I think if you just show up and start.
Well, like you said, if you're already up there, and I've done this in a million town halls.
I don't even just show up at her office.
No, but it was already there with business, and then you were talking about something. what I'm getting at is, she had the opportunity, or whoever was here, whoever's in this office had the opportunity to say, I don't have the time, come back, make an appointment. She invited Mr. Lemansky in, talked about the whole situation, and then kinda came back and wrote us a letter that this is unacceptable. Well, you can't have it both ways. So, I'm not saying there's a little bit of fault all the way around. So I agree with you 100%. Maybe moving forward, if you want to talk about any issue, draft an email or something, or have you send up something.
I think maybe when Mr. Lemansky was offering information about indirect costs, she might have perceived it as, was it coming from just Mr. Lemansky, or was it an action of the board requesting her to make those changes?
Absolutely.
And I think that was some of the confusion.
Okay.
Well, given the fact she's going through budget, it's budget time for her, comes a case of perception's reality, and she perceived that was the case, I would agree with you, Peter.
So,
And that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying like any one person is wrong. Just, I don't want to call one side out and not the other. So.
I think it's a commentary. It's sad when we have a small town, and we are a small town, that whether you're a board member or whether you're just a citizen, and you knock on the door of a department head here, that you can't have a conversation with them. And I truly respect the fact is, I'm busy, when's a good time for you to come back? I truly respect that, without a problem. But if I spend 8 to 12 minutes there, and that's about what it was. And again, I don't think there was a need for this written document, but anyways, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
So if you're a Joe citizen, you can go in and ask questions, and if you're saying you're with water and sewer, it's not a good idea, correct?
I wasn't
Yes.
representing the water and sewer.
No, I was just saying,
Right,
just
no,
to
and I
make it
I
clear.
don't disagree, I don't
Okay.
disagree.
Good.
so, moving on.
Okay, is that it?
I just have a couple items in the superintendent report. I didn't put one together because it was only 3 days after our last meeting when we put this out.
You said that last meeting.
Yeah,
But I did provide information.
Fair enough, but you said
we
the same
wanted
thing last
writing,
meeting.
we wanted bound,
Paul Rodman from Veolia will be here on April 2nd to start the GIS mapping of the rest of our sewer system, and the flow monitoring study will start right after that. His plan is to get the GIS mapping done and then have the flow monitoring start before or during the snow melt to really see the effect of the spring thaw and whatever we get for rain events during the spring season before it dries up.
could you repeat his name and?
Paul Rodman,
Paul Rodman, and he's from
Veolia,
Veolia, all right, and he has all of his own equipment.
the GIS stuff? Yes. He subs out to somebody to come in and do the flow monitoring.
Okay.
After he does the GIS mapping, he will identify the most probable sites to put the flow meters to do the flow study.
Okay, so he's gonna go to every manhole
Yes.
and do a click, and they're gonna
Yep.
I believe they're already numbered. Jody had a numbering system. Okay.
So that's gonna start April 2nd. I've been talking with Robin about the ExxonMobil timeframe status, and some of her board members are also not happy with the delay. So she reached out to Elizabeth Zinkowitz, maybe, from
Yeah, yeah.
ExxonMobil.
Nice lady.
And we're trying to set up a meeting in April between our two board meetings. So I believe we're scheduled to meet April 9th. So that would be April 16th or somewhere the week of April 16th. Hopefully we can set up a meeting with the Board of Selectmen, ExxonMobil, sit down, have a discussion to talk about what's taken place, what the cause for the delay, and just see what they can say to try and alleviate some of your concerns. So hopefully that will happen. I got a copy of the town meeting warrant. There's one item on here that's probably of interest, and it's water betterment's interest refund. So I know a lot of people are asking questions about the water betterment, the reimbursement and the process. I don't know what the article is. Again, I just saw the list of the warrant requests from the Board of Selectmen, so I just wanted to bring this up to your attention. This wasn't put on, it wasn't put on by me. I don't believe it's been in front of you guys for discussion, but there is a warrant article placeholder to discuss or present to town meeting about refunding the interest associated with the water betterments that were paid. So.
Should be fun.
Yeah, so that'll
Before you
be-
go too far away from, I just want to digress a little bit back to the ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil, I believe, is going to be putting in somewhere between, I'm going to say between 35,000 and 40,000 feet of water pipe.
Okay.
We just got a report a couple weeks ago from Ty and Bond, when Heather Blakely was here. They're putting in 19,000 feet of water pipe. And they've worked on it less than 18 months, and it's going out to bid this April. ExxonMobil has been working on this. Again, I've got an email from
7 years.
2013 saying that it was at 90%. And I should be saving this for the selectmen, combination selectmen, water, sewer, and ExxonMobil meeting. I just want to remind the commission here is this whole thing with Exxon is they're just, again, I don't know why I call it dragging their feet. And I know that things have been added, and I know, again, from Heather, not Heather, but from Maura Johnson is that they want to take advantage of economy to scale with the bidding, all right, which is fine, but there's still no reason, I don't see any reason why they can't do portions like this summer would be Mugget Hill Road to Bay Path, minimum, okay? It would be from Charlton Center up to Masonic Home, minimum, okay? And if they've got additional time, is do their best to try to get to the other two schools. But again, that's my personal feeling, and again, I think it's, from my point of view, it's unacceptable that they've taken us to another season as far as putting pipes in the ground, and especially when we have the colossal mess during school up here in the center of town in trying to do any work in the street. Just tragic that it's not starting. Anyways, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
No,
Oh, you got more?
executive session.
Oh, okay, well, motion to, oh, what do I have to say? I make a motion to enter into executive session under Mass General Law C 30A, Section 21A, Item 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiation position of the public body.
We get a roll call?
Is there a second?
Second, I got a second.
And a roll call?
Mackenzie, aye.
Gagnon, aye.
Lemansky, aye.
Murphy, aye.
Harwich Fun, aye.
Just state that we're going to reconvene in an open session for the sole purpose of adjournment.
We're
So moved.
gonna, sorry, my sore throat. We will, the Charter Water Sewer Commission will reconvene in open session for the sole purpose of adjournment.
Okay.